Welcome, everybody, to day 3 of the Noble Apartment Cup. I got to tell you, T-West, I was freaking out there. I thought I had ruined the entire
I'm glad
show.
you figured that out.
Well, I didn't. That's the thing. As you saw, I ran to go find somebody who knew better than I, and I was very lucky that Doubt was here early this morning. Everyone knows him as a technical savant, and he came to my rescue. So, lo and behold, Doubt's running the show right now while we wait for production to
Let's
arrive.
hope that works out.
I hope it works out, too.
I don't know if you've ever heard about this, but one time Doubt missed a tournament game because his son ate his internet cable. And literally ate it and knocked out his internet.
I've never heard that story before. I'm worried medically for his son, but I take it worked out in the end. Either way, we've got the show up and running, and it's T-West and I who are kicking off the day. For the first set, we are going to be treated to Hart versus Dogao. This is an all-important matchup because, as we've talked about all group stage long, stakes, securing a top 6 position, and the importance of that to book your trip into the playoffs and keep your tournament hopes alive. For Hart, lucky enough to have one win in the win column. Dogao still yet to find one. Pressure is on for both of these players. Dogao's only option is to win over the next 2 days, and even then, his destiny is not fully in his own control.
But at least Dogao had a very competitive set against Doubt yesterday. Finally managed to get a couple of game wins on the board, and he looked pretty good in that set. We had a very entertaining Game 5 that could have gone either way at the end, but sadly for Dogao, he's in that 0-3 hole, and maybe if he wins out, he might have a shot if some other things go his way, but it's looking very tough for him.
Absolutely. Now, on the other side, of course, we have Hart, who does, again, sit at a 1-2 scoreline. And we were taking a look at the standings, taking stock of the field a little bit earlier before the broadcast started, T-West. And it's just incredible how many players are sitting at 1-2. But that also makes it, in a way, not such a dire position. Since so many people share a similar scoreline, right? Again, you continue to win out, you end up in a 3-2 scoreline, you're through.
It's a very competitive position to be in. Right now we have Tato, Yo, Hart, ACCM all sitting at 1-2 and all looking to get into that top 6 position.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about this matchup, or as we take a look at the standings and get a refresher. Hera, of course, up top the table, but did suffer his first map loss just yesterday to the likes of Vinchester, who is sitting in the 4th position currently. Leary and Viper will round out the top 4 along with them, and Yo and Tato currently holding down playoff positions, but as we said, that's 1-2 score lines in terms of sets. So Hart, ACCM, Doubt, any of these guys could very easily usurp them and take their spot today.
Yeah, and this is a very important matchup for Hart, who, sitting at 1-2, is looking to move to 2-2, and has a very good matchup here against Dogao, a player who's not seen much success so far. And Hart, his first 2 matchups were really difficult against Leary, and then against Yo, he lost, but he'll have a good book gold score at least.
He definitely will. That'll bring us to the schedule of the day. We can see what our 5 sets will be. As we mentioned, we're kicking things off with Hart versus Dogao. We're going to follow that up with ACCM versus Doubt. I'll wait till the schedule comes up so I don't cite anything incorrectly going on from there. I believe it's Hera Leary as our 3rd middle matchup of the day. That's going to be an exciting one.
That'll be our matchup between our 2 undefeated players so far. Hera only lost that 1 single game. Both these players winning all of their sets, and probably all of us casters had them 1-2 in all of our predictions for winning the tournament. This will be a great matchup.
Yeah, from there, if I can recall correctly, I'm going to try and do this from memory as we wait for the graphic to come up. Viper versus Vinch, and then we close it out with Yo versus Tato. There you have it, friends. I cannot believe that Yo and Tato, again, speaking to the number of players that are sitting at 1-2, like the caliber of those 2 players to be at 1-2, and the fact that one of them will move to 1-3 at the end of day 4, never would have been on my bingo card at the beginning of the tournament.
Well, Tato had one matchup against Hera that looked pretty convincing for Hera. Then another set against Viper where Viper still looked pretty good against Tato. Tato didn't really manage to get his A game going. Yo's going to be another tough matchup for him. I mean, Tato, maybe he's going to look and think, I'll have a good book score, but he needs to step it up today.
Yeah, and we constantly talk about Yo, right, being a slow starter in tournaments, but this is about the time that I would both expect him to turn it on and that he needs to turn it on, right? And that's, I think, the thing. You know, you can only be a slow starter for so long until you just become slow, right? And then people are going to start to call him.
He looks really good in that first day against Vinchester, and he finds ways just to hold on in games and come back. He's going to need to do that in the overall tournament now.
Yeah, we'll see, though, because Tato is the kind of player who can still throw some pretty wonky strats at you while keeping up the pace and the pressure of the game. Vinchester, the Viper, I I mean, that's third and fourth sets of the day. I mean, obviously, as you mentioned, the two undefeated players in Hera and Leary at the top of the table. And then, of course, Viper Vinch. I mean, Vinch has looked phenomenal in this tournament. At least to me, one of the only players that he feels can contest against Hera, and we even saw still how good Hera was.
We did
in that series yesterday.
And that was a very impressive series from Hera. Just took everything Vinch threw at him and managed to find ways to counteract it, do it better. Other than maybe a Civ win on Copenhagen where he still tried to go for that King Snipe, Vinch looked... he looked like he could compete, though. He looked like he could compete.
Now, those are the series that will conclude the day. We're going to kick things off with Hart versus Dogao, so we'll refocus in towards that series. We'll pull up the draft to let you guys know what each player has to work with. We're going to kick things off on Dry River. The other 4 maps available to us are going to be Pacific Isles and Tiergarten over on the side of Dogao for home mats, and Citadel and Arabia for Hart. No real surprises there, I think. When we take a look at the civs, Georgians secured once again, and Dravidians the first pick on the other side. A couple interesting civs, I think, making their way in, such as the Vikings, right? Haven't seen a ton of that. Of course, you're looking immediately towards Pacific Isles, I think, for a pick like that.
Yeah, and same thing for the Dravidians here for Hart. I wonder if he's going to use them for Pacific Isles or use them for Dry River, where we saw them effective the other day. Italian's another pick for him for Pacific Isles. Even Berbers or Saracens there are good water civs. He does have a couple of those camel civs there, Saracens, Berbers for Tiergarten, which can be very effective. We saw that Hindustanis matchup the other day between the Poles and the Hindustanis, where the Hindustanis eventually could just hold on and use their camels. Yeah,
one of the things I'm wondering is where that Bohemians pick is going to go, right? Because notably, there's no bypass in the pool, and that would have been the first thought. I think there is still potential that Bohemians, for example, could even be played on a map like Tiergarten, right? Where in a sense, you're set up with a good amount of distance between you and your opponent in a way that enclosed is. And if you're able to control the sides of the map and create a single corridor with which you want to fight, that Civ could be rather effective. At the same time, if your opponent's able to open the map and run you around, it becomes a disastrous pick all of a sudden.
Right. One thing they have is a very good halberdier line, so those cav civs we've seen so effective on that map might be countered by them in some ways, and also that Castle Age chemistry giving them the very strong crossbow line could, if you really value the middle gold, the middle where that victory column is, and want to push that in the Castle Age, you could have a really strong push there with that extra attack on your crossbows.
Yeah, I think stylistically it's going to be no surprise that Hart did reach for the Arabia as one of his home maps. It's a map that obviously perfectly suits him, as we've talked about him being a very meta-driven player, execution-focused, right? You're not going to be surprised by too many of his strategies, but you might be surprised by his ability to hit timings, execute in a near-perfect manner.
Right, and I wonder where he's going to use the Georgians. Arabia could be a great option there. Tiergarten could also be another option. Similar Georgians and Magyar as both those cav civs, kind of interchangeable on those maps a bit.
Yeah, without a doubt. And we'll see if he can use those scouts to great effect. Hindustanis, Ethiopians. I love watching Ethiopians play, not just for their crossbows, the power of their crossbows, but because of the extra resources that you get in reaching that next age, right? And how even that can work into specific timings, maybe beating your opponent out to the castle age if you do attempt to go for a fast castle, and or just further feudal age aggression, getting a quicker upgrade into fletching or a few more military units out onto the field to overwhelm in numbers.
Right, and Ethiopians, usually not a civ we see in 1v1s all that often.
Right.
You have all of these admin bans, so you get to the end of your draft, and Hart's thinking, you know what, I'll try them out, see if I can fit them in somewhere. There's no really particular map where they really shine. Usually you see them as the team game flank civ, where they can really focus in on their archers, use those extra resources you mentioned to get their archery ranges out and get their production going, get that crossbow upgrade when you get to the castle age. In 1v1 it's a bit trickier because you can't focus so much on only one unit line.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's try and put some civs to certain maps. Dry River, that's where we kick things off. You already called out Dravidians, which we saw played on this map yesterday. What do you think then the answer is on the side of Hart? If you're making the assumption that Dogao is going for the Dravidians, how do you want to respond to that pick?
That's a good question. He doesn't have the Romans, the other civ that we've seen here. He doesn't have.
Right, he banned it out himself.
Right, he doesn't have the Goths that we'd seen Tato play here earlier. So how do you deal with all the skirmishers of the Dravidians? I don't see Byzantines as a pick either. He banned that out himself.
Is this Magyars? Just so you go early scouts, make use of that free forging and just try to overwhelm early?
And if you get control of those shorefish, you'll have the food ego to pump out the scouts.
Yeah, I wonder if that's the play, because in a lot of senses, Dry River can be played like in Arabia, in the sense that it is a fairly open map. Yes, we see a lot of people trying to get those walls up at home, but in the process of doing so, the fish will remain exposed, right? And so it's a lot about military control, and any civ that can utilize mobility, I think, can definitely pack a punch on a map like Dry River.
And because you get that free forging with the Magyars, you're getting the better timing advantage on your scouts, so you're not as afraid of early spears or men-at-arms.
And even your spears are better too, right?
Exactly. Your spears have that free forging they benefit from, so in that spear versus spear fight, they can even take some wins.
Now, Tiergarten, as I look back at that map as well, I'm looking at maybe a Slavs pick for Dogao. Again, I think a lot of people will kind of approach that map in a similar way that they would approach Enclosed. Slavs, of course, could also go over to Arabia. Berbers, though, a very similar civ, right? In cheap, stable production, a slightly worse farming economy than the Slavs, but a number of options there. Saracens is always one of those picks that I feel like, due to their versatility, makes a draft difficult to predict, right? That's, I think, one of the values of a Saracen pick in your draft is just the fact that it makes it harder for your opponent to figure out where any of your civs are going to go.
Yeah, exactly. They can't be played on water maps, too. And looking at this, we have Pacific Isles and Citadel as the two water maps.
Right.
And if Dogao does want to use Dravidians on Dry River, then that fits Italians into Citadel, and what does he then use on Pacific Isles?
Yeah.
Probably one of Berbers or Saracens.
Yeah, absolutely. Vietnamese, then, where is that going? Is that your Arabia pick?
That could be the Arabia pick.
Hindustanis, where is that going?
Hindustanis. We saw them played on Tiergarten the other day.
We did.
Be effective there. They could be the Arabia pick.
So then Georgians gets pushed to Arabia, if we're thinking Magyars is Dry River?
And then Hindustanis, Georgians, Tiergarten, Arabia then.
Yeah, okay, you've got plenty of options there. The countdown has started, friends, and away we go into the first set of the day. It's Hart versus Dogao. Hart in the blue, Dogao in the red, and we're on to Dry River to kick things off. It is going to be the Magyars pick over there for Hart up against, correct me if I'm wrong, that's the Saracens logo, correct?
I don't think that's the Saracens logo. I might be wrong. Is that the Dravidians logo?
Oh, it might be. Which would actually go back to our initial prediction.
We're anticipating production filling in that name.
We didn't know ahead of time that the casters would be tested on their on their crests. Yeah, knowledge.
We're eagerly anticipating our production team filling in that one line of text. Saracens, okay. It is Saracens.
I was right.
You were
Woohoo!
right.
I passed the test.
Yes.
I passed the test. All right. Okay, so not necessarily what our prediction was, right? We did call the Hart Civ. I think the Saracens at least went counter to what we thought in considering that the Dravidians has been used here before, and it would be a very powerful pick possibly on this map. Let's talk about the matchup then and how Saracens obviously happy to go into camels. I'm looking at Magyars, happy to go into cavalry. It's starting to feel actually pretty decent for the Saracens once we reach the Castle Age.
If it goes late game, Saracens with all that extra HP on their camels now, they no longer need that zealotry tech at the castle to get the extra HP. They get it for free. And also Mamelukes as a late game option for countering Cav Archers. It's tricky because the Cav Archers have extra range, but if you close the distance and you manage to trap them and take a fight, Mamelukes are going to absolutely massacre them.
I think one of the keys here, though, is we're talking about how the Saracens excel as the game goes later, right? And this is a very aggressive map. So for Hart, it's about applying that pressure, getting damage done early, create at least an economic and military advantage before we make it to the Castle Age, so that you might be able to close it out before the Saracens really start to come into their own power.
Yep, and we see both players moving out into the middle, taking that shorefish. Again, the shorefish are the fastest source of food in the game, so you want to stay there and contest the middle as much as you can. And continue adding more mills around the middle as you add probably towers. You might see a forward barracks, a forward archery range, a forward stable. Sometimes you're putting all of your military buildings right in the middle just so your reinforcements are exactly where you need them to be to enter the fight.
Yeah, that is absolutely the way we've seen the meta develop on this map, and I believe Hart's already throwing down his barracks in the middle of the map. There we see it now. Hart with a slightly faster Feudal Age timing, one vil less, of course, to work with. I would expect to see the scouts come out as quickly as he can, just hunting for a little bit more wood here before we can place that stable. There it is. 2 vils working away on it, and Feudal Age will come in for Dogao. I would venture to guess we'll see the stable in response, although
I would think so.
It's back at home. So that is a difference in placement between the two players.
Maybe recognizing he's up slower, wanting to be a bit more defensive. Maybe recognizing he can try to use the market and maybe isn't going to contest the middle as heavily as he would with another civ.
Yeah, absolutely. Stable's up. We've got the scouts on the queue, spears on their way out. And now it's just about who can find the damage. Walls coming up here for Dogao, so a much safer approach, playing directly into the way that we would expect this matchup to go, realizing that with that early forging, he's going to have a military disadvantage, and with the slower timings. So just needs to protect his fish, got the walls up already against those melee units. Sitting pretty for the time being.
And maybe he's thinking he can wall up and try to force this game to go to that late game stage where his camels start to come into play.
All right, so Hart, though, still going to force out the repairs, the extra buildings, and things like that. Looking for damage, testing the waters here. Scouts in through the walls and towards the wood line. It's just 2 scouts, but again, with forging already. So they can still find a Vil snipe if left entirely unattended.
We see Dogao rearranging the Vils on that wood line so they're easier to wall in if he needs to.
Spears were in pursuit, but they actually now get distracted by the spear itself of Hart, and Hart is going to loop around to the other wood line. Dogao will have to be sharp here, either on the quick walls or on the Vil pole. He is going to look to fight it, but again, these are forging scouts with a third one coming in. This looks to be the first Vil snipe of the game.
On down he goes.
He can get one more.
Down.
Ooh.
Vil.
I will take 2 Vils for 1 scout any day of the week.
And he might get a third.
A third
Vil here.
even. Oh, no. Okay, now I start to worry. Now I start to worry immediately that the game is going exactly the way that Hart wants it to. Now, he did lose 2 scouts through all of this, so Dogao does now have the military advantage, but he's going to have to make use of it to strike back.
Yeah, and he was trying to wall up and play very defensively and not have to use that military advantage right away. Now he's forced to find some damage and find some Vil picks with his own scouts.
Yeah, and again, we're right back up to 3 scouts on the side of Hart. Still a very dangerous a grouping. He's making his way back over to the eastern side of the map. The walls are trying to come up. We'll see if Dogao is able to get them down. Needs to have micro on this villager before the scouts find their way around. I think he realizes it. He can sense it, and beautifully done. Does get the walls up. Just needs to make sure that he pulls an extra Vil. Fantastic. We're not going to be breaking through just now. We're stopping the bleeding. That was a close one. Uh-oh.
Here come the spears, at least.
I spoke too soon. The scouts are in. Oh, but great damage found by the spears here, eliminating one of those scouts. And in the meantime, we did find the counter damage.
And he's getting the pokes on the scouts as Hart has to pay attention to microing his own spears to protect his villagers from Dogao scouts.
Yeah. All right, so in the end, Dogao salvages a little bit here, and the walls are nearly complete. Done on the eastern and southern sides of the map. Still needs to close the northern side of his base, but with those spears back at home, he's going to be able to push the scouts away, and one more villager comes out to complete those walls.
It's a really big area for him to wall. He has some wood lines that are very far from the TC, and even though they're kind of clumped up, there are big spaces between the wood lines and the edge of the map that need to be filled.
Yeah, 2 scouts rounding the corner here, but 2 spears in response. Isn't going to find the damage that he's hoping for. Another spear coming over to protect the gold. Again, if he ever loses track of these 2 scouts, they could find one more Vil snipe, but I think at this point, he's locked them into his own base, and we see there in the video on the left-hand side of your screen, we still have the 4 scouts of Dogao roaming around looking for more damage. 2 Vils behind in total. I think the scary thing for me here right now, T-West for Dogao, is the food count and the number of villagers on food for Hart.
And Dogao already sold his stone at the market as the Saracens, so those food counts are when he's already used the market.
Exactly. 500 food in the bank here for Hart. Already has the gold to click up. He's got more villagers in the center of the map working away. Nice poke there from one of the spears. This villager is going to look to find himself a fight against this mounted man. And now we have an archery range coming up here for Dogao. I think recognizing that he's got to get more done in Feudal. I wonder if he knows how close Hart is to clicking up.
He can probably feel it. He knows he's going to be behind from all that damage he took from the scouts. And yeah, he's gotten that counterattack damage, but it's counterattacking someone who's been taking that shorefish the entire time. And we can see that in the resources collected. Hart's up by about 500 resources there, or 500, 600 plus resources, and he's still in the middle. He's still in the middle. He's still getting that fish.
Yeah, it looks good if you're only to isolate the KD, right? The overall KD, 9-4 in favor of Dogao, but most of the kills he has found have been military units while trading out for eco units on the other side for Hart. Hart with the click up to the Castle Age. We've got 5 red scouts still in the center of the map looking for damage. just kind of playing ring around the rosy, attempting to lose the spears. And then if you find that moment where the spears get left behind and some villages are left unattended, just like this, what we're seeing now, this could be a couple more kills here for Dogao.
Oh, and that Vil is on the backside of the water, so he can't go back to the mill and run to his friends to fight. And he will be picked off, but that's 2 dead scouts.
There's 2
I think
dead
there's
scouts.
2 Vils there, but you see the effectiveness of those spears. If you're trading villagers for scouts, eventually you're going to hit the point where you no longer have enough scouts to continue hitting villagers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 3 kills apiece when it comes to the villagers, and a 36 to 33 villager count. But Hart is a minute away from the castle age, and as soon as he hits it, I would expect to see knights flooding the field. I'm looking for a second stable, perhaps, and maybe a second TC.
He hasn't really committed to blacksmith upgrades yet, though. We see the free forging he has, but nothing else. So he could still go cav archers as an option as the Magyars. He has lots of different ways he could play this. And now, finally, this is Dogao's archery range transition. I've seen Dogao do this a lot. He really likes still adding in the archers on the way up to the castle age, gives him a bit of army to upgrade to crossbow, and lets him apply some pressure here. And here, it's a great pressure as the Vils have to run off of the shorefish.
Well, and it's at least a second Vil kill here. Already got one with the scouts, going to find another with the archers, possibly a third as the Vils are in full retreat. And crucially, this is pulling Hart off of all of that food economy that he had, right? Yes, 250 food in the bank. He is going for fletching as well as bloodlines, but all of a sudden the resources aren't looking as nice as they were before. It's going to be Bacanero, so as you mentioned, a little bit of a transition into range for our Magyar player.
Yeah, and we saw those 2 ranges as this army walked past them. This isn't double stable knights, where immediately the knights could come out with that free forging and blast furnace, or not blast furnace, the iron casting, and clear up the feudal age army. Here, the cav archers, they need to be massed a bit. You need a good 4 to 6 of them before you can really think about fighting the archers in earnest.
Yeah, I'd say this is a beautiful recovery, though, for Dogao. Those initial kills found by the early scouts from Hart as the Magyar player, I thought that was going to spell absolute disaster for Dogao, but he finds the counter damage and finds enough of it, I think, to sort of stabilize this game, just about to hit the castle age, and crucially kept the pressure over on Hart's side. So Hart had to react, right?
Right.
First, as opposed to sending those initial cav archers directly across the map.
Right, and even here, he has to micro down those archers, and Dogao can get a couple of kills.
Yeah, trading out on the archer lives. We do have Bacanero coming in, so this is another good find here, I think, for Hart. In the end, whittling down what would become crossbow numbers in just a bit. But yeah, only working with 3-4 cav archers of his own at the time being. We also had Vodka earlier show us that there was an overchop on that right-hand woodline, and it's still there. So that's crucial for us to be aware of, and it's also crucial for Dogao to become aware of, because that could hurt later on in the game.
Definitely, but Hart needs to apply some pressure there, and so far Dogao's crossbows have stopped those cav archers, as you said, from getting that early castle age aggression, and Dogao has the score lead. He has a 3-villager lead. He's in a decent spot here despite that early pressure from the scouts.
Yeah, and now the clock is ticking, right? We mentioned it at the beginning of the map. The Saracens are going to scale better and better and better in this matchup as time goes on, and so once again, the onus is on Hart to find the damage, to create enough of an advantage here in the castle age, that whether or not he ends it in the castle age, at least he'll have a resource advantage and a military advantage going into Imperial, adding that siege and closing out the game. For Dogao, it's all about stemming any bleeding, or rather just maintaining your position right now.
Yeah, and here's where it gets tricky with the crossbows. You need to make sure they're not caught out of position. The cav archers have a lot more mobility. If they get into a bad spot, they can run away from it. Dogao has to be so careful to keep his crossbows and take good fights.
I love the early ballistics, though. I think that this is a fabulous tech, especially on a map like this, where you can still, even with walls being up, you can find damage onto Vils. Over wood lines, you can harass those farms. Definitely don't want to be diving TCs, so let's avoid that. But a big fan of the early ballistics tech when it comes to raiding or even trading out against those more mobile cav archers, right, who are going to have an easier time microing against non-ballistic crossbows.
Right, and we did see, it looks like that's where the hole was earlier, that the cav archers can't get through. Dogao recognized that, became aware of it, and added the houses. And here we see those Vils needing to run off of the wood line. Crossbows, they can at least hit the villager. They didn't kill him, but there's that ballistics, at least able to do some damage.
Yeah, and forcing Hart off of an entire wood line when he's playing into a wood gold composition, I mean, that's massive. That's good damage.
And also forcing that workshop and the mangonel out. That's a lot of wood he's spending that he's not using to add TCs.
And yeah, as you mentioned that, it's Dogao on the other side who reaches out for a second TC first, right? He's going to keep the attention here forward, forcing Heartt to respond. We see Hart isn't knocking on the doors of Dogao's base at the time being, rerouting those Cav Archers back as we speak. But with a second TC going up and already a Vil lead, I'd say Dogao is very happy with his position.
And we see no ballistics yet on those Cav Archers. They can't hit those Lumberjacks.
Nope, not at all. Okay, moving out for a TC, but those spears, they're going to see it.
Well, they will on the left-hand side.
I don't know if 3 spears alone is going to be able to deny this. There is a weak
though.
villager. They are weak spears. Now it's up to Hart to recognize this and take the fight with the villagers. He will. The micro isn't there for Dogao to find even one Vil snipe. If the crossbows were still around, he could come deny this. Unfortunately, they've run back home to try and corner these Cav Archers. Remember, ballistics crossbows. So could find a couple good kills here as long as he's able to track them.
This will be a great fight if the crossbows can get there in time.
Oh, they have gotten there in time. This could be every single one of the Cav Archers going down in the end. He's got 2 groups of crossbows. It's great perspective here from Hart, trying to outmaneuver this with the mobility, and he might get a couple of them away. But that's a phenomenal trade for Dogao.
And that's what we were mentioning earlier. You need your crossbows in the right spots, and there Dogao had them beautifully positioned to take out those Cav Archers.
In the meantime, mobility playing its part in all of this. We do have Hart taking a second group of Cav Archers over to the left-hand side or the northern side of the map, finds one Vil snipe over the wood line, forcing those Vils off of wood and onto gold for a short period of time. We have a third TC now going up for Dogao, so trying to maintain his 1 TC lead over Hart in the end.
But still, we see no ballistics on those Cav Archers. They only got 1 Vil on that wood line. Dogao's not really taking much damage here. You might need to re-wall that, but there is the TC there.
Yeah.
Don't know if Hart wants to risk diving in.
I think it's tougher to dive in underneath a Bodkin arrow ballistics TC, right? Then you are actually taking a significant amount of damage.
Especially when you don't have armor.
Right, when you don't have armor as well. Look at this. Okay, we do have the mango here, so we got to be careful. Dogao takes a massive hit to the face.
Oh, that was a perfect mangonel.
That was the perfect mangonel shot.
Right there as he was breaking in. That's the hard thing when you're Dogao. You don't have that line of sight inside of the base when you're going with the crossbows. It's always a risk.
Yeah, great response there from Hart to push the crossbows away. If not for that mangonel, could have been a disastrous moment with 10 crossbows entering with ballistics and Bodkin. Taking a look at the numbers as well, we've got 32 crossbows on the side of Dogao. We've got 17 Cav Archers on the side of Hart. Both of these players, right, looking to find that mass, harassing over wood lines continuously. The Vil count still very close between the players. We're in a pretty dead even game state.
And look at that, 4 mangonels there. From Hart.
I love the slow-moving box formation, Cav Archer, double mangonel push. Oh, I love it.
This feels like the army the AI makes in the campaign.
It's so picturesque, though. I feel like
Cav Archers at the same speed.
We should. There should be a tournament at some point where you're forced to always have your military fully grouped, so they always move at the slowest speed.
We'll have to set that up sometime.
All right, so the crossbow's still looking for some harassment. The Cav Archers have been pushed away in the north, but right as I say that, the mangonels and the Cav Archers are arriving towards the center of the base. They batter down that gate, have found their way in. We have the Siege Workshop up now from Dogao, a mangonel on the way, but it's still going to take some time for that one to pop out.
And Dogao also has to be careful of that mangonel coming forward.
Good reaction.
Paying attention.
Great reaction. Let's check back in on Dogao's base, though. Let's see. He's been pushed off of gold there. Cav Archers are looping around the back. They're just going to run into another TC, though, so it might be difficult for them to find some damage on that wood line. We've got 2 groups of crossbows being microed here for Dogao. One on the left, one on the right.
And we are in a mangonel.
Yep. That's a 1-for-1 trade, though. Generally, 1-for-1 trade, good for the defensive player. All that said, Hart still the one with the mangonel in your base, but you're typically happy to trade 1-for-1 if you're defending.
He doesn't have that many Cav Archers there either. It feels like he can micro down the Cav Archers and, yeah, use the Vils on the mangonel.
Love to see that. Now the crossbows come in. Just wants to avoid a big mango hit. Oh, okay. That's some good damage still to be found by a mangonel. That was almost certainly going down. Now the crossbows with ballistics still need to micro down these Cav Archers. Another Vil kill has been found here for Hart, keeping that Vil count very, very even between the two. Military numbers, I think I would consider this relatively even because Cav Archers, right, a slightly stronger unit, 1-for-1 than a crossbow. So crossbows typically needing to be a bit more in mass, while both ultimately would love to get to that point where you have 60 ranged units in a tight ball.
They would. That's where the Cav Archers really shine, when you can get that huge mass of them, and especially with the extra range of the Magyars. But here, the Saracens, they have a really good Arbalest line. It's a lot cheaper for them to eventually turn them into Arbs, get Bracer, and get all of their upgrades. And especially with that attack bonus against buildings, they can go for that early imp push really effectively.
Okay, we've got Elite Skirmisher coming in. We also have the University coming up back at home there for Hart, so thinking about ballistics himself. Important to note, neither player close to Imperial Age resources. Looking to be a very extended Castle Age as even another TC.
Well, you say that, but Dogao's the Saracens. He's never that far away if he has
I guess that's true.
He can always decide if he wants to sacrifice that military and go up.
But I think the fourth TC kind of tells me, once again, that we're not trying to race to the Imperial Age. Like you say, though, you could sell the stone that you have. You've got 900 gold in the bank. Even sell a little bit of wood. And jet on up to the Imperial Age. We did have that Elite Skirm Tech finish for Hart, so he's moving off of the Cav Archers for the time being and onto the Elite Skirms. Another great Mango shot. He's found a lot of damage from Mangos against crossbows.
Oh, and it gets the crossbows on the retreat too. But at the same time, there's another fight going on, and that Mango should go down to the crossbows.
Can I get one more hit? Oh my God, he's finding great Mango shots.
That felt like that shot could have been a bit better, though. It hit one or two crossbows and didn't really get the splash on all of them that he wanted.
Yeah, the animation definitely lied to us a bit. But either way, still was able to remove a couple of them from the map. We do have Mangoes on the other side as well, though. And this is a good find here from Dogao. Solid split to avoid too much damage. Also was able to pick off a Vil. The Elite Skirmishers are in defense. We're back to Cav Archer production as well here for Hart. So he's kind of mixing the two together. At what point do you reintroduce cavalry to the fight?
For either player, I think it has to do with the mangonels. If you want to clear mangonels, you could go for a small number of cav. Otherwise, it feels like it might just turn into a skirm war. Both these really good archer saves. If you're the Magyars, you're afraid of the camels. If you're the Saracens, you're kind of afraid of the Cav archers until you get your Mamelukes out. And if you're the Saracens too, you only have knights. You can't upgrade them to cavalier. It's not a long-term solution. Yeah,
second archer armor coming in. That's going to make these elite skirmishers, very, very strong against the crossbows. Still such annoying, groups of 4 Cav archers over the wood line there for Dogao to have to continually deal with. Hasn't moved on to the Elite Skirmishers himself, so still largely producing mangonels and crossbows into what is now becoming an Elite Skirmisher army of his opponent. There's those resources you talked about.
And there he goes up to Imp. He added the second stable, but not producing anything from it yet. I wonder if he could just go for the light cav line, or if he's thinking of a camel transition to deal with cav archers long term.
Yeah, either way, crossing the 36-minute mark of the game, I continue to think that this game is looking better and better for Dogao, right? Equivalent villager numbers, still a very solid mass of crossbows, and honestly, not a good enough forward position here for Hart to make him think twice about clicking up to the Imperial Age.
Exactly. And again, he doesn't necessarily have to transition. He can stay on the crossbows and use Siege to try to deal with these skirmishers. And once he gets the Imp, you get Bracer, you outrange the Mangonels, you do Bracer, Arb, and Chemistry, and all of a sudden you're doing a lot of damage overcoming the Pierce Armor of the Mangonels.
Yeah, I've got to be careful not to lose your numbers before you hit the Imperial Age, though. Does trade out for one Mangonel, loses a couple crossbows in the process. Okay, a couple more crossbows go down. At this point, I think you go full retreat back to base. You got 1 minute and 30 seconds left to wait. We do have a defensive castle coming up. And so you want to make sure to defensive for both.
Right. He gets that castle, he can go back to the castle, keep the numbers alive, and wait for those upgrades.
Another archery range being dropped here for Hart.
And I like the walls. I like the stone walls, keeping the entire back portion of that map safe, where he'll have the wood long term, and any gold or stone that's back there he'll be able to take for free.
Well, and it's good recognition of the strengths of the Magyars, right? And the fact that, while yes, he's producing a lot of elite skirms, he still has those cav archers running around. If you can completely deny, a point of entry, let's say, to your base, Cav archers, they can bust through a palisade wall pretty quickly. It's going to take them years to get through a stone wall. And so an incredibly effective defense against a unit like that. We do have husbandry now on the way. Elite skirmishers spot the castle just as it goes up, so they'll be pushed back. And now we have even more investment into archery ranges. Thumb Ring coming in as Imperial Age arrives. Would expect to see. There you have it. Bracer and Chemistry on the way,
right away
for our Saracen player. Things are looking good for Dogao in Game 1.
And once those upgrades come in, he can even take a fight against the skirmishers. He needs to wait for them, but even once Bracer comes in, you're doing so much more damage compared to the pure armor that they have. You actually can kill them pretty effectively.
Okay. Imperial Age on the way here for Hart, though, so not to be completely outdone. He's a minute and 30 away from it himself. Thumb Ring to match the Thumb Ring that Dogao already has, but he'll be in the deficit of Bracer and Chemistry. I like the conscription play as well, nice and early. If you have the ability to squeeze that in, it just makes the military production all that much better. Even when you're taking even trades, now you're reinforcing that much quicker.
And this is where we've seen the map usually be over in the early game. Now there's so much shorefish in the middle that isn't important anymore. You don't care about that as a food resource. You just kind of have this dead space in the middle of the map that you can get your military production buildings there, and it's important for your map control, but there aren't any golds or stones there that you're going to be trying to control long term.
Yeah, Dry River becomes a no man's land. Exactly. World War II style, you got to run across no man's land to get to your opponent's trenches and try to break through. And here we have, as you mentioned, the crossbows with just Imperial Age upgrades, making quick work of skirmishers that aren't even reacting.
And then looking at the eco upgrades, handcart for Dogao versus not even wheelbarrow. Wheelbarrow just coming in there for Hart. And looking at the res collected, Dogao up by about 2,000 resources.
Yeah, no, I mean, everything looks good here for Dogao. At this point, it would be his game to lose, I would say. Another defensive, and I think he recognizes that with yet another defensive castle back at home, right? He knows he's got the better civ the later they go. He knows in a post-imp situation that if both players even play perfectly, he will be the one who comes out on top. So he's not taking any chances. He's not going to go forward with 20 vills and end up getting mangonelled or something,
right,
and throw the game. He's going to approach this safely, and I like to see that from a player who desperately needs to find a set victory today.
And if you were to do that forward castle, it would have to be really far forward because you don't want to do it in the river where your enemy has the hill on their side of the river to trap it down from.
All right, here we see the tech switch as well. So already prepping to get some camels or some light cav out onto the field.
Those walls are great. Those walls are absolutely perfect.
Yeah, what do you do? What do you do as Hart? I think this is where things start to feel a little hopeless, right? Because you're running into stone walls and you're going, oh my god, I gotta find that damage, I gotta get in. And even if I tech switch at this point into the cav, of course he's the Saracens, he's got the answers to me.
He does, and of course the Magyars don't have great siege either. If you could get some workshops forward, you could maybe get cap rams to try to go through the walls, but that's about it.
He just sold 1,000 stone. No, I'm sorry, I'm just looking at the market usage from them. Again, this is Saracen's strength here. He's just sold 1,000 stone.
It's like having extra gold.
It's incredible, and look at all the techs, again, that continue to come in. Arbalest, Elite Skirm, Heavy Camo, we got the second armor upgrade. I mean, he's just absolutely gapping Hart in every respect.
Yeah, and with that stone, in the long run, it feels like you have more gold as the Saracens. You're going to get to the late game and run out of gold much later than your opponent. Still, no one went for the relics on this map. You see all those white dots on the mini-map.
That's a really good
the
point.
Dry River, but I
don't even know if either player has a monastery, right? Let alone, the attempt to go for the relics. The techs continue to roll in. The players are both building up the ranged militaries. No siege for either player, though. So that's the other thing to consider, is that you need siege to end the game. And so we're still a ways away from seeing this game conclude, I think. And that's really the onus again on Dogao now at this point, after putting up these stables, to maybe start investing into either trebuchets, rams, whatever his choice of siege unit. Unfortunate losses here for Hart.
Speed of the skirms.
Yeah.
But as you say, no siege, because what are you going to hit with your siege? If you're going to make the siege, you don't want to run it across the entire riverbed.
Right.
You want your workshops forward, and you need map control before you can actually invest into those workshops.
Yeah, waiting for the correct military composition to come forward and establish a forward operating base, if you will. Now we have plate barding on the way. The heavy camo production has begun. We've got 9 on the field with 4 more in the queue. Both players up over 130 villagers apiece. We got Parthian tactics coming in there for the Magyars. Again, their cav archers scale incredibly well. I believe recurve bow did come in earlier as well already.
Yep, we do have that 7+5 attack, 4+4 range. And this is where the Magyar cav archers, they're just better than Arbalest at this point. They have the range to match them.
Now they have the hill.
They have extra attack. They have the hill here, and they have so much more HP. if you're the Saracens, you now need to make that transition. You don't want to be 200 pop Arbalest against 200 pop Magyar Heavy Cav Archer.
Right, so here come the camels, looking to find some snipes, push those Cav Archers away, but the numbers aren't big enough just yet to make too much of a difference. Look at the castle positions for Heartt as well, right? So I mean, again, we might be locking in for a long one here, folks.
And Corvinian army, there he goes for the Magyar Hussars to make them cost only food. And if you have a lot of castles up as the Magyars, you can drag the game out because your unique unit is a trash unit that's good at sniping siege. And all of a sudden, needing to come from all the way from the other side of the river across to have any chance at hitting castles just to be sniped off by your opponent's light cav unique unit can be really demoralizing, and it just drags the game out so long.
Yeah, so what are we looking at as we see the camels come forward, run into castle fire, have to retreat? We're looking for 50-ish heavy cav, 15 Magyar Hussar, and some siege. Is that the final army composition for Heartt?
I think the army composition for Heartt is just heavy cav archer with some Magyar Hussars.
A little bit of Magyar Hussar.
See him doing the elite upgrade there. We see him investing into the farm upgrades now. He has handcart. He's doing the eco upgrades, and he's preparing for a long game.
So then is it just camel skirm on the other side? Or do you need to mix in enough Arbalest to deal with the Hussar themselves?
I mean, camels themselves should be able to deal with the Hussars. I wonder if we will see that Mameluke transition. Again, it's a unit a bit better at fighting the cav archers in these choke points if you can close the distance. But it's all about closing the distance with your camels and managing to take fights against the cav archers. Heartt's going to be spending the entire game just microing one group of cav archers, trying to keep it alive and take good trades.
Now, we've been waiting for one of the players to start to reach towards a siege, and it will be Dogao who goes there first. 2 Trebs onto the field, 2 more in the queue. We saw Cap Ram Tech come in already, investing more into that archer armor. The camels continue to run into castle fire, and that's why we need the siege so desperately.
Yep, and the Saracens do have a great siege workshop. They have access to siege onagers, which can be a counter to cav archers, but again, especially on this map, vulnerable to being sniped off by the Magyar Hussars.
Yeah, the skirm numbers look good, though. 21 here with 34 camels as a front line. Here come the Magyar Hussars, though, making their first appearance in the match. They are going to have to engage against some of the camels as well. Like you said, a counter unit, but those heavy cav archer behind will make quick work of those camels. And it's just two Magyar Hussars force all those skirms away, but it looks like the heavy camels are in here on the bottom side of the map, and there aren't enough cav archers to deal with it. This is going to be a great little win here for Dogao, pushing his opponent off of some gold, pushing his opponent off of some stone, and keeping a very crucial point of entry here for him into his opponent's base.
Yeah, and Dogao, meanwhile, is fully stone-walled, so he doesn't have to worry about that counterattack. He can just kind of skirmish that army in the middle while doing this damage.
Yeah, normally I would be thinking it's the Magyar Hussars that are doing the raiding, but it's the heavy camels that are doing the raiding here. And while Heartt has to try and stem the bleeding, we do have another big fight occurring in the middle of the map, but the camels make quick work of the Hussar. We still have plenty of skirms there to deal with the heavy cav archers. While the overall trade might be pretty even, I'd say Dogao is happy with that, since he's the one who has some camels running around in the back of Heartt's base.
It's just so tricky to deal with those cav archers in the long run. Yeah, camels are an option, but they also died to the cav archers. It's all about whether you can get the engagements, and those camels have been doing damage, but Heartt continuing to queue villagers and recover the economy behind these raids.
Yeah, both players essentially popped cap, but now the Trebs arrive to the fight, and this is going to change the makeup of how the players are approaching it. It's going to force engagements, and ultimately Heartt is going to have the control over the Magyar Hussar to go and snipe those Trebs, not lose them too quickly to the camels like he's doing just now. Right, and that's going to hurt just a little bit as Dogao is setting up to put pressure on the first of the 3 castles that are defending.
I think Heartt pulled way too many cav archers back to deal with 4 or 5 camels in his base. Those Trebs now have an avenue to hit that castle if the cav archers can't take the camel numbers down enough for the Hussars to engage on the Trebs.
Yeah, I actually really like this position that Dogao has set up as well.
He's on the hill. He's on the hill, so he's not going to be trebbing it from down in the riverbed.
Yeah, he's on the hill. He's also made it so that there isn't as much of an ability to flank with those Hussars, right?
Right.
Now, by pushing himself up against the side of the map, it's kind of forcing a front on engagement. So there we have 4 Trebs working away. The repairs are coming in from the villagers. It's diving in now for Heartt, looking for the snipes onto the Trebs, but the camels find a great meat shield in front of it. Yes, a couple of those Trebs will go down. In fact, 2 of them do. Maybe a third will fall, not to be seen, and one of the castles already crumbles to dust.
And that opens up that gold mine on the western corner of the map. Now the camels can run in and raid that too as the skirms move in. And that was a great fight from Dogao. He has a few camels clean up his other castle. Does he see that gold? He should have info. Yeah, there go the camels.
And we've gotten to the
He'll
stage
find a
of the
stone
game
line
where the
too.
Saracens should be feared here as a Magyar player. More camels diving onto villagers here on the left-hand side of your screens. We got this skirmishers making quick work of heavy cav archers. Yes, a couple Magyar Hussar trying to play defense. Another castle goes up, so Heart's not ready to tap out of this one just yet. Waiting to see, oh my goodness, look at the idle villagers here for Hart. That's looking pretty disastrous.
He's got 80 idle villagers. I've never seen that many idle villagers before.
That's an incredible number of idle villagers. He's got no one working on gold, no one working on stone, only 34 on food and 8 on wood for the time being. He did take a pretty decent trade here underneath the castle fire, but the military count is still amazing for the Saracen player in Dogao. 64 on the field. More camels come forward. The Trebs are repositioning. Only 2 Trebs, though, so it's going to be harder to pressure castles. If a couple more Magyar Hussar get back there and look to snipe the Trebs, I'm looking to see if the queue picks up here. Doesn't have enough gold at the moment, but plenty of resources in the bank. Could continue to make use of that Saracen market. He comes forward now, looking to pressure the second castle of the game.
And that castle, only 2 Trebs, so Hart has an opportunity to repair. But I love this army composition from Dogao. You had mentioned maybe going for Arbalests earlier to snipe off the Magyar Hussars better, but he was able to protect the Trebs just with the camels. And the skirms themselves, yeah, Arbalests might overall be the better unit, but specialized at dealing with those heavy cav archers, the skirms they fill that role so well.
One of the Trebs goes down. The second one on fire. We'll see if the shots are there from the defensive Treb of Dogao. The repairs are coming through like you mentioned, but the big snipe comes on the side of Dogao. 1 Treb. This will take a while when your opponent's got 850 stone in the bank to repair with. So again, I'm looking for more siege to hit the field, and Dogao hasn't thought of that yet.
He still has that 1 Treb, and he's going to be taking this one fight underneath the castle. Even with skirms, you don't want to fight underneath the castle. The Hussars should pick off that Treb there.
Yeah, 1 Treb, not enough. Easy snipe there for the Magyar Hussar, and now they look to lead the camels on a wild goose chase. I'm starting to see those elite skirm numbers dwindle, but we do have 19 in the queue, producing out of 8 archery ranges. Siege ram tech on the way, so a transition away from Trebs and into the siege rams and onto Hussars as opposed to camel.
So this is where he's starting to run out of gold a bit, so he needs to make that transition to the trash unit. And if you're no longer having those camels out to deal with the Hussars, all of a sudden your skirms are much more vulnerable.
Yeah, definitely. So this could be a moment where Hart finds an opening, right? He's gotten at least a second to breathe while the camel mass is still very large and is finding purchase onto villagers on the left-hand side of the map. It still feels like Dogao has major control over the course of this game. 100 villagers there for Hart, so the economy might start to suffer as the game goes on. Again, crucially, no villagers on gold. So for him, the number of cav archers that he currently has is as many as he will find, unless he can find a way to get more gold in the bank.
And he's trying to run off the edge of the map there and try to find some more gold with those camels, I think. But those cav archers will be chasing him down and running right into more skirms. That's a good fight for the Hussars there when the camels weren't engaged.
Yeah, very solid find there, reducing the number of skirms on the map. We got 2 more Trebs out onto the field here for Dogao. I'm going to call into question going for a siege ram tech and then never producing a siege ram. I would like to see those siege workshops be put to use. Ultimately, I do think it will be the more effective siege unit, especially when you're playing against a heavy cav archer. There is a hole there.
Oh, no,
oh my goodness, what a wall!
How is he even paying attention to that one spot? That was a beautiful quick wall, and that's going to keep him safe. Only a few Hussars, but still, we've seen so many times this tournament. 1 cav unit gets into your base and suddenly kills 20 vills if you don't notice it.
All right, here comes the siege rams. Here comes the killing blow, or at least Dogao's attempt at a killing blow. We'll see if Hart has the ability to stave it off, but I'm worried with the resources in the bank that if he takes 1 bad fight, he won't be able to replenish the military numbers, and it could spell the end of the game for him.
And that's what the siege rams do. They force you to fight. The only counter to them right now are the Magyar Hussars, your melee unit, and that's going to force the camels to take that engagement. The cav archers will be in the back hitting the camels, but here we go.
Yeah, all that said, the Magyar Hussar numbers are decent. He's got 20 out on the field. He's microing them around, looking to target the trebuchets first, then likely the siege rams to follow. The camels are trying to push back the heavy cav archers. They're also trying to defend at the same time for the siege. Both of the trebs crumble to the ground. and the siege rams continue to push forward.
A great use of that pond there, looping around the side, trapping the camels so that he could find that line, that avenue to get to the trebs and not take much damage. He still has the hussars alive to protect the castle.
Yeah.
And the thing with the rams is they have to come to the castle. Your Magyar hussars don't need to run out into the open, face the camels for a long time. They can face the camels directly underneath the castles while they try to snipe the rams.
Yeah, clearing up no man's land there, just removing the remaining structures that Hart had standing from earlier in the game. From there, he'll have no choice but to push up this hill. And that's one of the aspects of Dry River and the difficulty in closing out a game, is you essentially at some point have to commit to attacking uphill into your opponent to close it out.
That you do uphill and making your siege vulnerable as they go under all of those hussars that we're going to see right here. Probably all 4 of those rams go down. See how well the hussars do. Ooh. He didn't engage.
Yeah, and the camels made that messy. The camels made that messy. They're playing a decent front line to the rams. I kind of like this move from Dogao. The expectation is that he would push right up the center there, and he's actually saying, no, again, I'm going to be the one who dictates the positioning of the next fight with my rams and forcing it. So I'm going to go to the southern side of the map and maybe target that castle. Now, all of a sudden, you have a wall of camels you have to run through in order to get to these rams. That said, the numbers of military still look really good here for Hart as the Magyars. And ultimately, it's easy for him to throw these food units away and replace those. So you're happy to do that all game.
Exactly. In this setup where the Saracens player is using their gold units on the front line, so the camels are the ones that are dying and the gold is being spent. The Magyar player just keeps their cav archers in the back. They're saving all of their gold for the long run.
And it's a rarity that somebody has 9 siege rams on the field and still doesn't feel like they can push.
Because of those hussars.
Yeah.
They're so good at sniping them off.
Yeah, this is such a difficult position. We talked about how I would, we maybe prefer the Saracens at this stage of the game, but you can even see, while maybe having the benefit of the better Civ in the matchup, it is still incredibly difficult to close out against a player who's using their army composition to its fullest.
Yeah, as long as you have gold and you have the camels, you feel like you're okay with the Saracens, but eventually, even though Dogao does have that 6-2 relic lead, that gold supply is going to start running out.
Yeah, thank goodness he's got that 6-2 relic lead, because that will aid him tremendously as the game continues onward. Looking for some raids as well with the Hussar. Always asking questions of his opponent, always forcing reactions. You never know, you catch somebody off guard, and that could be it. Maybe it's not about killing the castles. Maybe it's about killing 30 villagers, right? So there's a couple different ways that you could ultimately end this game. I actually really love the extension of that stone wall, right? Just creating more of a choke point for Dogao to have to push through if he wants to ultimately take this. The cav archers still playing from the top of the hill. Now we have another engagement. Hussars dragging camels back, looking to get kills onto skirmishers and siege. Good micro here from both players, though. The camels always making sure they come back to defend those siege rams, but at some point we've got to commit to a push.
And this siege ram push will probably be what decides the game, if the rams are useful or if they just get picked off by the hussars.
What's he waiting for? That's the thing. I mean, and the answer could just be the right micro, right? The right situation, the right tactical situation for him to actually bring those rams in. But at this point, the army compositions aren't changing, and I'm not seeing either player look to change their army composition.
No, and right now, look at the resources collected. Dogao is so far ahead, but he's falling behind in the KD. And over time, your KD difference will make up for that res difference as your opponent is spending all those resources but then losing them as their army dies.
Yeah, we got one Magyar Hussar over there looking to take out a siege ram, but the siege rams are only moving further back across the map. They're moving in the wrong direction.
Yeah, and there's nothing to ram back there. We talked about this earlier. That middle river has nothing in it. It's just those ponds of shorefish. At this point, if you're Hart, you're content. You're just going to sit there, wait for the gold to start to run out, and then hope that your cav archer army still is alive while you're spending your hussars in the KD.
How about this? Yeah, we're making use of that Saracen market still. Thank you for pointing that out, Vodka. How about this? Well, as he invests all of his gold, I was about to say, at what point do you buy all of the stone to place a forward castle, and then you have a position to treb from? You have a little bit of a safer position to actually launch your push from.
Could be an interesting strategy for Dogao, or even just stone for towers to make a safe spot forward.
Right, because I think that's the thing. Right now we're seeing the indecision, right, that he's facing, not having, or rather not finding his window of opportunity to ultimately push up that hill. So how can you create that window of opportunity? Yes, it would be a massive investment of gold to buy 650 stone, but at a certain point, you're now the one getting pushed back. You're going to have to look for a different answer. What you're doing is not working.
And it feels like the Rams were a wasted investment now. He wasn't able to really do anything with them, take out a few production buildings on the front, but that was it. Sometimes you want to use those Rams to soak up the Cav Archer fire, but you can't do that against the Magyars with all those Hussars.
He is, at the very least, with that extra gold and, of course, the relic gold that's coming in, still able to keep camel numbers at a decent level. We have 17 in the queue with 15 on the field, also mixing in Hussar of his own. Not able to raid too effectively with them because of the walling that has come up here from Hart at this point. So again, it's pretty much about, oh my goodness, 110 kills from the heavy Cav Archers.
That's the Magyars. That's what he does. He's going to micro those Cav Archers. He's not going to lose any of them. He's going to keep them in the back. And in this matchup, I wouldn't even be surprised to see Herbal Medicine from the Magyars if you ever want to garrison them and heal in your castles if you get pushed back again.
Ooh, how about this? Okay, we finally brought a couple Siege Rams over to the side, but that needs to be supported by some Hussars. I think we see them moving forward now. Can look for more raiding. A hole in the wall there for the Magyar Hussar to find, but a great response here from Dogao already, catching it, using that monk to great effect, gets the conversion.
And unlike the normal Hussars, the Magyar Hussars do not have conversion resistance, so the monks are effective against them.
Okay, but we're in on the left-hand side of the map. Hart realizes he's sending Magyar Hussar over there to deal with it now, but of course, he will have to protect this TC and all of the villagers' farming economy, wood economy over on this side. I think the numbers are high enough, though, for him to respond.
Yeah, that's not a problem for him. The great thing about the Magyars is that your entire army is mobile, so if you get raided, you can just break off a few Hussars or a few Cav Archers and go deal with it, then come back.
All right, so the Siege Rams didn't work. The Trebs didn't work initially. Dogao's thinking bombard cannons. Maybe that'll work.
Maybe it will. He's thinking Siege Engineers too. I think the Trebuchets were a lot more effective than the Rams.
I think they were much more effective than the Rams. Again, that's where I bring up, or continue to bring up the idea of buying stone for a forward castle position, because I think that then that makes Trebs an incredible choice. At least you're forcing Magyar Hussar to run underneath castle fire as well as camel defense in order to take those Trebs out.
Yeah, but even then, it's tricky because you don't really care about losing the Hussars. They're only your food unit.
Right.
You're going to run them under any castle you want just to snipe Trebs.
We do, of course, see the Halberdier tech coming in as well for Hart, so thinking about mixing in yet another unit onto the field. Of course, skirmishers are already in play, so those are pretty effective against Halberdiers, but it'll make it even more difficult for camels to find good fights.
It'll help him keep his numbers up, and sometimes it's useful just to make sure that you have all of your trash unit upgrades for the long run before the gold runs out. So prepping for a long game, we saw him do crop rotation earlier. And now those Trebs can move forward, and it's hard for the Saracens to deal with them. Bombard cannons can be very defensive against Trebs, but again, those Hussars are there. They can run under those skirms, under those camels, under that castle, and just try to snipe off the bombard cannons. And I think Hart has this at this point.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a way for Dogao to stop those Trebs, unless he brings the Rams in. Here come the Rams.
I mean, yeah, Hart's only built 3 Trebs this game, and all 3 Trebs remain alive. And now he's the one who's wrestling back control of no man's land here. Uh-oh, the skirmishers found themselves in an undesirable position, getting absolutely melted by the Magyar Hussars. Here come the Siege Rams, a lot of them already going down to the Magyar Hussar. A couple of them will make their way, though, to the Trebs, and all 3 Trebs going to go down in the end. The bombard cannons helping as well from afar. We do have siege engineers in as well, so 1 extra range there. This could be the moment if Hart can't get his numbers back up. 38 military count, but we do have plenty in the queue. With a couple good raids there as well from camels. Not the best raiding unit, but if left unchecked, they will find a lot of kills.
Yeah, and great defense there, using those cannons to snipe off the Trebs along with the Rams, and just goes to show how hard it is to push as the Magyars when you don't have great siege. These Magyar games can drag out. You have a unit that specializes in sniping siege. You don't have your own siege. And we have a map that's set up so that your castles are so far apart, you have to cross that great no man's land in between before you can take a fight.
And the really difficult thing there for Hart, right, is the lack of gold. There's no gold on the map, so it's all down to relic and market usage. And unfortunately for him, he's got the worst end of the relic trade, again, only holding 2 to the 6 of Dogao, and he's got the worst market prices by virtue of not being Saracens. So replacing those Trebs is incredibly costly.
Now, we don't have the chat on the screen, but we can still hear the taunts. I heard the players laughing in the game about something. I don't know exactly what that was, but, I mean, we might be here for a long one. We're already an hour and 20 minutes into the game. And, well, what do you think if Dry River gets completely dried up and becomes a wood game?
I think, well, that's, again, where I'm going to go ahead and give it back to the Saracens because of a couple things. I mean, once again, while, yes, you can produce Magyar Hussar to, the day's end, unfortunately, look at those heavy Cav Archer numbers. sitting at only 23 and not able to get that group back up to the amount you want. You know, you want to sit more closer to 40 or 50 to actually deal with the Hussar and the Camels on the other side. Good rating still being found, though, here from Hart, and not willing to give it up. But the Siege Rams now coming forward. The numbers looking pretty good for Dogao. We have equivalent military counts, 72 to 74 on either side. But Dogao thinks he's found an opening. He's bringing the military in. It's 2 Siege Rams, Skirms, Hussars, and Heavy Camels up against the Magyar Hussar and the Heavy Cav Archers. A few Halberdiers being mixed in now. We'll see how each of the players micro through this. Unfortunately, we're out of siege again, so we can't really push anything.
The Rams are down. Immediately, those Hussars, he focused the Rams, didn't care about losing the Hussars to the Camels. And yeah, he's on 23 Cav Archers, but after that entire fight, still on 23 Cav Archers, didn't lose a single one.
Yeah, this is difficult. We do have 800 gold in the bank on the other side. So again, I'm going to keep leaning towards the Saracens, but this could be a game decided by a simple execution, decision, or mistake.
It could be a game decided by the Relics, 6-2 there in favor of Dogao. Having that early map control with the Saracens could be what gives him the Relics and the eventual long-term gold income.
Okay, so another big engagement here. We've got the Heavy Cav Archers firing downhill. They're going to find a solid number of kills, but plenty of Magyar Hussar go down in the process. We do have Dogao coming out to even make use of that shorefish. Unfortunately, all of those vills getting sniped by the Magyar Hussar on the left side of your screen. Hoardings coming through for Hart as well. So again, trying to lock in for a long one here. Make
those cannons sniped off by 1 or 2 Hussars.
Oh, that's brutal, but again, at least those can be replaced. As a Saracen player, you're a lot less sad about your siege going down than if you were in Hart's position right now, because you got 74 gold in the bank.
Right, and at this point, I gotta ask, do you even consider adding in more siege? It feels like it's all being ineffective. You're not really killing buildings. You just focus fully on army and focus on taking the best KD fights that you can.
Yeah, I mean, I think for the most part, like I would not go back to the 9-10 Ram position, but I think you have to have at least some siege. Again, 2 Trebs, 2 Bombard Cannons, right? Maybe that alone, because you still need to force fights, and you still need a way to take down castles, break open the walls, and get onto TCs, and start killing villagers.
Right, and it's hard because you need to get that mass, as you said, 4 or 5 Trebs before you can take a castle, but that's a big gold investment that can just be picked off by trash units.
Yeah. All that said, Dogao sitting at 106 villagers. Now, some of those were Vill snipes. I think some of it as well is his recognition that he's got a lot of resources in the bank, and that maybe investing into a slightly higher army count, now up to 83, might be the way to take that better trade. Might be that way to just barely overwhelm your opponent and find the killing blow.
And as the resources run out, you start to delete vills because you don't have as many places to put them.
Mm-hmm.
You have your wood lines that you need to chop, and we see him, he's even going back to the shorefish in the middle of the map at this point.
Yeah.
He's trying to get everything he can.
Well, the players continue to dance in the middle of the map. We take a look at the queues. Once again, it's 35 Hussars in the queue here for the Saracen player. On the other side, it's primarily Halberdiers and Magyar Hussar. As we mentioned, look at that Cav Archer count. It's been 22, 23. Oh, drops just a little bit. But yeah, really finding it difficult to whittle those numbers down is Dogao.
Yeah, and here's where Hart needs to use the market to sell to get more Cav Archers. That food count, that wood count he has to be turned into gold. We see him selling there 1,000 food.
That's brutal prices, though.
And just he queues up, what, 2 more Cav Archers.
Yeah, so from 22 up to 24. He does have 1,600 food in the bank, 2K wood in the bank, so he can continue to produce Hussars to the end of time. And I think it's just going to be about one player making the perfect decision to capitalize on their opponent's perfect mistake.
Right. And here we see the score. Hart's way ahead in score, but that doesn't really tell the story of the game. It's about that tells what the KD is.
No, not
basically.
unless we're playing Empire Wars.
Yeah, not unless we have a score
time limit.
We're past the 75-minute time limit of that.
Exactly.
Right, but here it's all about how do you make that transition as the resources run out and take effective fights going forward.
Alrighty, well this is, I'd say, a decent fight here for the Magyar player. A bunch of skirmishers losing their lives, and with those halberdiers in tow, the camels don't want to commit to a fight against the Magyar Hussar. They'll do it for a moment, but as soon as those halberdiers arrive, great, now we've got to retreat just a little bit more, eventually making our way back underneath the safety of our own castle. Again, important to recognize, no siege on the field for Hart. So while he keeps pushing this army back, the game's not ending. He's not winning this game until he finds a way to push up that hill and take those castles off the map.
And we see Dogao, look at that, about 30,000 more resources collected, but still feels like he's kind of being pushed just because of all that extra KD that Hart has keeping those cav archers alive.
Yeah, pushed at times. He does do a decent job, though, of microing his cav units. He's got hussars coming in behind those heavy cav archers. Now Hart has to retreat there. He gets cleaned up on the front. Again, the military numbers still look good for both players, but right now we're in a situation where the attacking player ends up losing out on the fight because of the quickness of the reinforcements arriving.
Exactly.
Right? It's not even a matter of taking a bad trade. It's just if you have an equivalent trade, the guy who can replenish quicker gets the initiative. Now we're going back to the other side of the map, but I would look for the same exact thing to happen, just in the other direction.
I mean, here's a question. Do you even want to attack at this point? Do you want to just camp your base, maybe let the enemy player just come forward? You know, still want to control the middle, not let them get those forward military buildings, but there's really no need to fight under the castles if you're not going to have any follow-up to push through them.
All right, well, here's where I go back to your question about this becoming a wood game, and I think Vodka's already thinking about it. I want to know what the resources... We know what the resources collected for both players are. The resources remaining is very important. And since Dogao has ultimately collected more res, I would venture to guess that if this game goes to full resource depletion, Hart's in a really good position because he has more left to collect.
Right, but remember, Saracen's market for Dogao, you kind of hit this weird point where you have the relics, you can start buying wood.
True. That's a good point. And but then strategically, your opponent is selling wood because you're increasing the prices. It could be a difficult one to play out. Hart as well, though, has 120 villagers working away to the 102 of Dogao, and there's still a decent amount of wood on the map. So we're not in danger of hitting that, complete resource depletion point just yet, but it's something that I'm certain both players are considering.
It's definitely on their minds, and you can see the vill count, I think you mentioned this earlier, for Dogao, down to 100 vills. He's trying to keep that army number up now that he has fewer tasks for the villagers to be performing.
But like you said as well, bringing villagers out for the shorefish, not going to leave any resource uncollected if he has anything to say about it. This isn't looking like a great fight, though, and only for the fact that he's got all that pop space, he's only got 60 military on the field, and now a couple more villagers go down below 100 for the first time ever in the game since we've reached the Imperial age. 97 to 116, 72 military to 64 as a whole bunch of military units pop out. He's got to look to push up this hill, and there's still no siege on the side of the Magyar player. So winning the fight, pushing across the map, but now finding a reason to retreat.
Yep, this is one of those games where Hart's playing the long game. As we saw, when you do crop rotation, you're thinking this game's going to last for a long time, and all of his fights are now geared towards getting the best KD he can, keeping those cav archers alive, and just dwindling the camel numbers as the gold's running out.
Yeah, just under 20k wood left on the map. When it comes to food, yes, there's plenty, but it's a difficult resource to take because you'd have to do it in the midst of a battlefield. And so we're not going to pay too much attention to that food count. It's all about the wood, and it's all about the military control.
Yeah, and here Hart has a really big stockpile of wood. He's got 4.5k wood, and Dogao is spending all of his wood. He's at 100 left.
Yeah, this is actually starting to look like a very scary position here for Dogao. He's almost completely depleted in his resources across the board. He's not producing any more villagers, so while he does have 75 on food, his wood count is looking pretty abysmal with only 17 villagers bringing that resource in, and like you mentioned, just worse economy upgrades across the board.
Yep, that crop rotation now is going to make your farms last so much longer. It means that in the long run, you have so much more wood to work with because you haven't been spending as much on your farms.
Yeah, I think Dogao is going to start feeling the pressure to make something happen, and he might start taking more risks. Now, that's an overchop. That's an overchop, and we do have hussars on that side of the field. So how quickly here does Hart respond to the raiding? It's 115 villagers. Let's see what happens to that number over the course of the next 20 seconds here. Already dropping to 108. These are good kills to be found. Up to almost 100 military here from Dogao. This could be one of the moments where he feels like he can push for the win. Still no siege, but if you do enough economic damage, you might be able to find an opening where it's hard for Hart to replenish. That said, with all of that wood in the bank, I have to imagine that he can just keep spamming the Hussars. Just keep pushing you back with the Hussars.
Yeah, and here it's tricky because now the Hussars can come from the back and force the camels to go outside the walls and force the skirms to come in, which are much less effective at raiding.
Yeah, overall, though, looks like a decent push here for Dogao, and he's still keeping those military numbers high. He's idling a lot of farms over here, down to 54 working farmers on the side of Hart, and no food in the bank. He does have 14 Hussars in the queue, but crucially, no more Magyar Hussars in the queue either. I want to see maybe that Treb start to move forward. Plenty of Hussars in the queue here for Dogao. Now that you've gotten him to react to your push on the side of the map, maybe you refocus back in towards the middle. We've got idle military as well that needs to be used here by Hart. We're pushing back through this choke point. The skirmishers firing away. The Hussars tanking a lot of the fire. The heavy cav archers have done incredible work throughout this entire game. At the end, I'd love to see the kind of damage that 184 kills for 21 heavy cav archers. That's incredible.
That's incredible. And remember, some of those cav archers have died, so that's an even higher kill count among all of them. But finally, Dogao, it's just so hard to continue your push. Your opponent stabilizes. You're so far away from your production. And I know Vodka's been looking at those siege workshops on the eastern side. I don't think there's any Vil actually actively going to build them. Just a bit of wood there. Maybe in the long run, you delete them for wood.
Absolutely. That would be something that you'll look towards later in the game when you're trying to find solutions to the rapidly depleting resources on the map. Now, if anything, though, what's important here, while we do have 3K wood in the bank, at the very least, you've kept Hart from getting this wood on these wood lines. And maybe that's Dogao's idea, right? Is I know it's a wood game. If I can just control your remaining wood while making use of my remaining wood, maybe eventually I get you to a place where you just can't produce anymore.
Maybe, but you need to be really far forward consistently to take that wood. You can push someone back for a good 5-10 minutes, but eventually they'll get back. Once you start losing a fight, you can re-wall in front of it as he's doing there, eventually get the Vils to chop those forests again.
And just as you say it, Hart makes it a reality. He pushes Dogao back, 66 military for himself to the 46 of his opponent. Look at the overall populations as well. Much healthier here for Hart. Having a tougher time replenishing his military is Dogao. Only 4 camels remaining on the field, only 18 skirmishers. It is purely Hussar production at this point.
And remember, Dogao was up at around 100 military just a few moments ago. Finally, Hart was able, just with his reinforcement advantage, to win that fight. And all of a sudden, Dogao doesn't have the resources to keep his population up at 200 anymore.
Yeah, more Hussar coming into raid. Running underneath the castle. We're down to 13.7k wood on the map. How much do these Hussar get done? They'll find a couple kills, but the response is great here from Hart. Now we're looking for a raid of our own on the other side of the map. And you're at 93 villagers. If 20 Vils go down, that could be the end of the game right there.
It could be. It could already be over with the pop difference. Dogao just can't replenish it. He's getting a bit more food and wood at this point. But now that blue blob, finally, his base has been safe this entire game. Maybe a couple of holes here and there where 1 or 2 cav got in. But finally, it's a big raid, and he no longer has the gold for camels to clean this. On the other side, the heavy cav archers can always
unprotected Vils here. Unprotected Vils here.
Everywhere.
Yeah, this is going to be a lot of deaths here if he doesn't respond properly. And like you say, Vils now stretching out to find the last bits of wood on the map. I think there's definitely more wood available for Hart as well. And ultimately, it's going to feel a lot better to be producing Magyar Hussar than it is to be producing regular Hussar.
Yeah, 6,000 wood left in that corner over there for Hart, and that's, I think, most of the wood that's left on the map. A few straggler trees in the middle. If Dry River comes down to a game where you're chopping stragglers in the middle, that's going to be crazy.
Now,
but
repairs.
You see the Treb now. Finally some siege. That can't be sniped off.
If this game is going to be won with 1 siege unit. That's what it's looking like to me right now. Hart, he's going to protect this Treb with his life. We do have bombard cannons tucked away in those siege workshops, but I think Dogao realizes that he just doesn't have it in him to keep this one going. And what a lengthy game 1. The exhaustion you can see for both players already, how difficult that was.
I am so bad for throwing this game. What the fuck?
I won the whole castle age, but you're always waiting here, you know?
So Dogao views it as a throw.
I wouldn't view it as a throw.
I think it's tough. Yeah, I think it's tough. I mean, you and I both felt, at least, perhaps, the Saracens should be favored.
I feel like as long as they have gold,
Right.
they're favored. And I wonder if Dogao maybe long-term, we liked that camel skirm push in the early Imperial Age. Was that the best long-term army for him? Could he maybe have gone instead for the unique units for the Mamelukes, maybe found more success at their ranged unit? They don't close they have a very short range. They need to close the distance on the Cav archers.
Yeah.
But might be a bit more effective at killing them, just keeping that mass down.
Yeah, I think it's easy to get stuck into the idea that the camels, being such a great counter to the Magyar Hussars is all you need to deal with them. But the problem is the Magyar Hussar only need 2 seconds with a Treb to kill it.
Exactly.
Right?
So
And
hard
so-
to keep your siege alive. And without the siege, you can't push.
And if you're defending melee against melee, they're going to find that 2 seconds with the Treb. But if you have the Mamelukes, right, that are at least able to
Right.
fire on you on the way in, or you have even Arbalest, right? Again, not necessarily your best or favorite unit in that situation, but actually the range might be useful to protecting the siege that you needed to close out the game.
And we saw just on that map how hard it is actually to finish someone off. Hart had, 80 idle villagers at one point. He had no economy, but just enough to keep the military on his side of the map when the production was so far away for Dogao to continue getting military there. It just wasn't possible.
Yeah, but again, credit to Hart for sticking in it, and credit to him for finding the solutions and having the unit control. Because I think it's also easy. It's easy for us to criticize the army composition there from Dogao and how maybe he could have closed it out by making 1 or 2 different decisions. By the same token, if Hart doesn't find those necessary kills on the Trebs in the initial push, and then masterfully stonewall, and I mean that more figuratively than literally, but masterfully stonewall the siege rams out, right? 9 siege rams. That's a deadly composition if they find, just 10 seconds alone.
If you're against any composition other than Magyar Hussar, that's a deadly composition.
Exactly.
But against the Magyars, just the Rams, you can't use them.
And the ability to keep those heavy Cav archers alive. I would be curious. Obviously, like we said, a lot of Cav archers went down throughout the course of the game. But the total number of kills in that KD that came from heavy Cav archers is incredible.
And the other stat is how many Cav archers did he actually have to train throughout that game? You're seeing the Hussars and the Camels from Dogao. He's constantly adding more and more of them. We had that 23 Cav archer group that basically stayed at that same number. It's not like Hart was constantly spending gold producing those Cav archers. He had that mass and he just kept it there.
Well, a near 2-hour game to kick things off here on day 4 of our group stage. We're going to take a quick breather. We're going to let the players take a quick breather, maybe rehydrate and gear up for game number 2. We'll be back in just a bit to bring you through it.
And now, a word from our partners.
Have you heard of the 21st century?
Why settle for clacks, clunks and jams? Say goodbye to sticking keys. And welcome to the ultra-responsive, quiet precision of the U-Rage Exodus 760 mechanical keyboard. With our Temu red switches for ultra-silent key presses, anti-ghosting with N-key rollover, and 1 millisecond response time, this keyboard will keep up with your fastest moves. Whether you're gaming or working, you'll enjoy precise control at the speed of light. Get yours on Mueller.de. In case you rage, we do not cover costs for damaged screens or unfinished castles.
Welcome back to the Noble Apartment Cup for Game 2 of the first set of the day. It was a long one to kick things off, and Hart will be happy to have wrestled control of that one and ultimately the win. But I think it's also important to note, if we refresh our minds with the draft, that Saracens was a late pick, Magyars was a second pick. So pretty high priority in those picks, and so important to get those wins with the civs that you're investing early picks with.
Right, and if you're just going to waste one of your end of the draft civ picks, you're not too worried about having used them.
Exactly. So let's go ahead and think about where Dogao goes next. If we could pull up the draft to refresh the viewers, because it's been quite some time since they've seen it. We have Pacific Isles, Tiergarten, Arabia, and Citadel left to be chosen between, and it will be Dogao who gets to decide where we go. I would typically expect in the second game of a set that you go to one of your own home maps, but we have been surprised by players in the past.
Here, I think Dogao, I'd expect him to pick Pacific Isles.
Okay.
I would expect him to go to the water map against.
Is that
Hart.
just because it's drastically different and you need like a change of pace?
Drastically different, and again, you expect Hart to be a focused Arabia style player. And Dogao, very experienced over the years at playing hybrid maps like Pacific Isles, very experienced at playing water maps, and I expect his micro to be really on point for that map.
Okay, so it seems pretty obvious to me on Pacific Isles that Vikings would be the play. I think the question becomes, since you didn't use Dravidians on Dry River, do they go to Pacific Isles or Citadel? Because you also have Italians to work with.
Both of them, you could go either way, I think. But I think Italians, maybe you have a slight preference for Citadel just because of how it hinges on that fast uptime for Feudal and getting those early fire galleys out. And they're also great, not to say you don't do this on Pacific Isles, but on that fast imp Trub War. You saw that the other day in that Italians-Byzantines matchup in that Leary-Yo set, how the Italians have just such a smooth build to getting those Trebs out, raiding on land with the Condottieri, and the cheap bombard cannons too.
Okay, so let's continue working with your assumption.
Okay.
Dravidians, Vikings now. Talk to me about that matchup.
Vikings, you always worry about the longboats. You get to the Castle Age, the longboats come out, and there really isn't another ship that deals with them in the Castle Age.
Right.
But early game, Dravidians, they have a good galley rush. They save the population space on the dock, so they have more wood to work with, and they get all that free wood from aging up. They can get good initiative, take the islands in the middle.
Okay, so Castle Age going to work out in favor for the Vikings on the water at the very least, but possibly Dravidians getting out to a hot start, hitting the Feudal Age, taking control of one of those central islands. This also brings me back to the map itself. We've seen many different styles of generation, in terms of those central islands. Mem calling it the Banana Island just the other day. I think that as well puts a high priority on scouting. Obviously, you start with that transport ship. And so where do you send the scout from the beginning, I think, is very important, and getting that information so you know where you want to prioritize your initial landing of villagers, where you want to build up in the Castle Age, and whether or not you want to secure an island separate from your opponent or together and create more of a clash early on.
And if you're the Dravidians or even the Italians or potentially even Berbers on that map, another good water save with the faster moving ships, you probably want to be on the same island as the Vikings player. I think you want to make it messy on the land and not just leave it up to the longboats.
I agree. I like that idea, and so we'll see, in the end. Well, again, all assuming Civ picks here, right? We could always be throwing a wild curveball and Vikings doesn't get played on Pacific Isles, but I would be pretty flabbergasted if that were to be the case. Players just now having an opportunity to sit down, even still sharing in some conversation.
And not like Hera and Winchester. They're not typing to each other.
Right. I'm wondering just, oh my goodness, where your head's at after playing a game like Game 1.
Like, what's the longest 1v1 you've played in Age of Empires?
I don't know, half that.
Half that? I've gone to a good 3.5 hours.
Have you
before.
really?
Yes.
Oh no, I think I've had like a Nomad game that was very extended. I was getting beat for the majority of the game, but just decided to. I was playing Ethiopians randomly and decided to just see if I could get to Arbalest, get to 60, and out micro my opponent, and that's what extended the game pretty long. But ultimately, at my level, somebody's making a game more than likely making a game losing play than making a game winning play by that point in the game. So I don't think games extend nearly as often in kind of the middle elo portions of Age of Empires.
It's an interesting aspect to playing Age of Empires that at the high level, everyone's had a number of games like that.
Right.
And you start to learn how to manage your eco as the map runs out of wood, and as you stop playing a map and just start playing a blank slate.
Exactly. So, again, continuing to learn about elements of my game that I need to level up by watching the best of the best do it. But pretty soon we'll be in to game number 2. Of course, TOS and I going to continue to take y'all through it. Hopefully y'all have been enjoying it because I think these players are feeling the pressure of the moment. Again, Hart happy to have the 1-0 lead, but I don't want to forget how important this matchup is to both players. Dogao cannot afford to lose this set if he wants any opportunity to make it into the playoffs. He has to win today, he has to win tomorrow, and even then he needs a number of things to break his way that are fully out of his control. For Hart, a little bit more agency in controlling his own destiny. With one set win already, he wins today, he wins tomorrow, 3-2. Much better position to guarantee yourself a top 6.
Exactly, and even if he ends up in that 2-3 position, if he wins today and loses tomorrow, he's going to have a good boot cult score from having played against Leary and against Yo. So the better your opponents are, the better your position will be in the standings. And Hart, couple of disappointing losses, but he was still so competitive in those games, and I think he's looking to really make it into the playoffs and maybe shake stuff up when he gets there.
Largely been the story of the tournament. Again, we've got, I think, 4 or 5 players, as I flip on over here just to double check myself on this. 1, 2, oh, this hasn't been refreshed since yesterday. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 players sitting at 1 and 2.
Yo, Tato, Hart, ACCM, and Doal.
Again, if I had told you that at the beginning of the tournament, you probably would have slapped me in the face and said, "Wake up, you fool." There's no way some of those names are going to be sitting at 1 and 2 at the end of day 3. And the idea that a couple of those names, right? Yeah, not just that all of them are sitting at that scoreline, but a couple of those names are not going to make it to the playoffs where we would have wholly projected them to be. That's pretty wild. That's pretty wild to think about.
And especially Yo, who was invited to the tournament and didn't have to go through the qualifiers.
Exactly. But, of course, when we talk about the different players' strengths and weaknesses, Yo will continue to be cited as the kind of player who ramps up throughout the course of the tournament. Now, of course, he's playing against Tato today. Absolutely no slouch of a player, and one of them will end up in a 1 and 3 position and be staring down a maximum scoreline of 2-3, which is exactly what we said these two players want to avoid.
Exactly. And, I mean, Yo and Tato, that matchup is... we've seen that in tournament finals before. It's a big changing of the guard now to see how the success of Hera and how dominant he is, that he's always going to be at the top, and we're all expecting him to be there.
Right, so we've had that changing of the guard at the top, and these are two players who are trying to initiate a bit more of a changing of the guard, right? Insert themselves into that top 10 more often. Dogao looking for a resurgence in his Age of Empires 2 career. Hart, having impressed many with his last NAC appearance, is still trying to find that next gear in his game, right? And prove that he can start to compete against the top 4, top 5 in the world. But away we go on to Tier Garden of all maps here for our second game of the day, and it will be Hart in the blue playing as the Georgians up against Dogao in the red as the Slavs.
Two very cap-focused civs, as we talked about on this map. Georgians healing scouts, that's the first thing you think about them. Get to that initial feudal age scout fight. As long as you're microing and pulling them back, you're healing them and saving them for later. But then you get to the unique units. The Manaspa for the Georgians, the Boyar for the Slavs. I don't know that I've ever actually seen that matchup. The Manaspa are so strong, but the Boyar with a ton of melee armor, maybe they could be useful against them.
There's a break point. Somebody's run the math. There's probably a break point of number of Manaspa where they start to overwhelm. But like you say, I think the Boyar in a 1v1 situation, obviously with that incredible melee armor, would come out on top. Either way, we're a long way away from having a unique unit versus unique unit battle. It's going to be all about the scouts in the early game, and then maybe some archers or some skirms kind of woven in there in the feudal age. Of course, we'll also point out again to everybody that the primary source of wood comes here in the center part of the map with 2 big rings of a wood line. Both players going to make efforts to chop their way through so as they don't get, towered out and kept away from the central gold. But at the same time, I think sometimes it can be a bit of a bait to over-focus on the center of the map and over-focus on that gold. There's plenty of resources out and around the edges of the map, and we've seen a number of winning players elect to, concede the center of the map while they expand their ecos in a maybe a safer way even, and then ultimately find their way to push in the end.
We do also have those berry patches on the outside, and you have your outpost near them, so you always have vision of them. And it's kind of a weird thing. Usually you think of berries as this early game food source. You mill them, you take them, and that's it. Here we've seen that it's so vulnerable and far away from your TC, you don't take it early. But if you're pushed off of the middle and onto the outside, as you said, we can see TCs out there in the long run delaying your farming eco as you can take the berries.
Yeah, very much like bypass, right? A similar setup where you can choose to go kind of out to the wings to expand your eco. And like you say, maybe avoid hopping onto farms as quickly as other players might need to, if you can get the extra food income from making use of those berries. Here we have both players making their way to the feudal age, 18 vills apiece, but it is a faster click up here for Hart in the end.
Let's see, does Hart have Loom there? Hart's a player, I think, let's see, we have 50 gold for each, so I think he did do Loom. So yeah, it's always the struggle to figure out
How do
where
we have a
that
30? How do we have
timing
a
comes
20-second difference then? Because it's only
It's something that's very obvious once you see it, but then you feel silly not seeing it. Does he have Loom? No, he doesn't have Loom. How does he have 50 gold then?
He's got Loom queued after Feudal.
Oh,
So
okay.
he clicked,
goes.
but he
There
queued
he
it.
goes.
That's what it'll be. There it is.
right.
So Loom is on the way, and that's how he will have the faster click up. Of course, he is going to have to invest the time into Loom now, but that means that the stable comes up faster for him. That means the scout production starts sooner for him.
And also he's getting the wood upgraded right away, so great build from him. Georgians have a really smooth build with that wheel cart they start with. Ooh, looks like Dogao didn't grab two of his goats
Didn't
out
grab
there.
2 sheep, and I'm also almost surprised to see the horse collar coming in because just what we talked about, right? There is some extra food on this map and the opportunity to forgo early farms. Now, in the long run, this will work out for him. We do see horse collar matched now on the other side, so both players are going to be investing into those farms. The walls come up around the wood lines as well to prevent too much damage coming in from the scouts. Almost about to break into that first ring of the inner side, but Dogao rather will be the first one to get through.
Yeah, and we're not going to see that very quick chop forward tower strategy we'd seen a couple times on this map. It's just going to be calmly chop your way through, get your second lumber camp on the next ring eventually, and probably do that defensive tower.
Yeah, I wonder if the players kind of almost handshake and agree to make their way towards the castle age at this point, right? Because scout v scout, Georgians is generally going to take the better of the trades by trading out a little bit of health and then healing back up and ultimately looking for the kill engagement a little bit later on. No walls yet here for Hart, so maybe more damage to be found for Dogao if he can find an opening. But with spears on the field in defense, I think it's going to be difficult for either player to ultimately lose. Any villagers, I say that, and all of a sudden, yeah,
okay.
Hart's thinking about
Run
it.
back to the TC. Hart really was not prioritizing chopping through that wood line. He has not microed those vills to get through quickly at all. He's just content to leave the mule cart out there, let them chop, and let Dogao be the first one to enter the middle.
Yeah, but like you say, no one's thinking about a tower just yet, so he's not going to ultimately be punished for that decision. From here, it's just about taking stock of the army count. And crucially, Dogao has stopped production of scouts at 2. Continued production on the side of Hart. About to hit 5 scouts, a much more deadly army. While, of course, going to require a lot more resource investment.
And Dogao should have the faster castle time along with the Slav farms that work more effectively. He should be up faster. He just needs to avoid taking damage, and it might require more investment into the spears in order to keep himself safe. But again, you're so far apart. As long as you're not making mistakes, you feel like you should be safe from the scouts.
A half-completed wall here. 2 scouts making Dogao aware of it, looking for our first Vill snipe of the game, and we get it. And honestly, you're happy to trade out that health because, once again, the usefulness of the Georgian scouts over time, you're going to see that health ticking up.
And it ticks up really quickly. We can even see it healing on the overlay as he has the scout selected there.
Yep.
It's really surprising how quickly they actually heal.
Well, and with their mobility, right, you can opt to not take a fight for a very long period of time and come back with 4 full health scouts.
Absolutely. And finally, we have both players chopping through to the middle, but Dogao's the first person to move that lumber camp forward. As the Georgians, it's nice. You don't need to build another one. You can just take your first mule cart and move it directly to the next wood line.
Yeah, 2 spears on the chase, 4 scouts. Continue to loop around. Honestly, he's just going to probably move in a counterclockwise motion like he's done this whole time and continue to force Dogao to react if ever he's left with for a moment where the spears are caught too far behind. Maybe he can find another Vill snipe underneath the TC. Thinking about diving right now for it. Splits the scouts even.
He's looking for it. Yeah, not enough. Not enough there. It's tricky when you start double layering those farms. Your vills are a bit farther away. The scouts, if you're not paying attention, they get inside the vills, attack them, and if you don't micro the vill immediately, the first movement of the vill is away from where it gets attacked, so you have a bit more space to finish off the vill.
Right, position yourself between the Vill and the TC, making that a difficult run to make. So here we have 3 scouts diving in on yet another Vill. He gets trapped and unfortunately goes down in the end. That's another wonderful Vill snipe here for Hart as the Georgians. The Eco KD up to 2-0 now and still hasn't lost one of those scouts. We do see the scout numbers climbing again. As I say it, the first one goes down, but we do see the scout numbers climbing again for Dogao. So while he stopped production very early, he has eventually decided to catch up and even surpass in the scout numbers. Now 6 on the field.
I wonder how good his scouting is of that right side of Hart's base where he sees that there's, or if he has scouted, he'll see there's no wall yet. Hart's just now adding in the wall.
Yeah, he did come from that side as he looped around, so he's probably somewhat aware of it, but still very much focused on getting his own walls up at home. You know, as much as he can provide safety to those Slav farmers, right, he's going to start to develop a bit of a lead, at least in the food eco of all things.
Right.
Of course, Georgians can really start to turn their eco on as they get to the castle age and start dropping fortified churches. Good damage found on that scout, but no kill to follow. Wheelbarrow now being vested in here for Dogao. Hart, though, looking really good in the food count and the move towards the castle age.
Yeah, and he's doing bloodlines even on the scouts. Ooh, that is a big feudal investment into those scouts. He has 7 scouts doing wheelbarrow bloodlines. And is he going to look to push in the middle? Is he bringing that wolf in the gate with him?
I mean, tower dropped on both sides for each player, so a little bit of safety provided. But honestly, not enough to deal with this many scouts. They're going to freely dive underneath that tower.
Those spears, too. If he brings his own scouts over to fight, the spears are going to be there. And it's tricky to quick wall when that rocky terrain is behind you.
This could be bad. This could be really, really bad for Hart. We're looping the scouts around with the spears. Right now, he's sending his own army forward. It's just one tower in defense. No other military here.
One spear?
Aside from one spear. You commit to the spear, you dive under the tower. This could be a quick work of all these villagers. You're up to the castle age for the Georgian player, but unfortunately, while all that's happening, you're going to start losing your eco. 1, 2 villagers found. A couple more will die as they look for the retreat back to the base. Spears making their way over, trying to play defense, but this is going to be multiple villagers going down, and just like that, the vill counts are evened up.
And 2 more low HP vills. Down they go. Those spears could go down 2 to the scouts. It's a little bit of a hill for them to fight on. And all of a sudden, it's a 5-2 eco KD. Hart's taking some damage here. And Dogao, just like we saw in that previous game, later up to the castle age, but able to do damage in that feudal transition by investing a bit more into that feudal age army.
Yeah, it's almost like it's following the script of the first game, right? Hart's the one who deals the initial damage, and with that initial damage, feels like, okay, maybe I can make my way up to the castle age, take advantage of the small, eco lead that I have. But that, again, makes, or rather puts the importance on defending, right? Not taking that counter damage, and Dogao masterfully finds it again.
Yeah, and now we have that small wall. Imagine if that wall were just up right away, preemptively. And it's always something you can think about. Hey, I have my villagers. Let's just wall them in and keep them safe. You don't need to take that damage.
Yeah, not just that. You could have a couple spears there, right? The couple spears that had to rotate over if they were there to begin with. Now, this is another good look, though, here from Hart. Trying to find some damage of his own. Forging just about to complete. He's going to go ahead and tuck these scouts underneath that tower. That's idle villagers, soon to be dead villagers if there's no response.
Yeah, and that's Dogao. All of his spears are forward, right? He could have left 1 or 2 of those spears back by that tower. Could have had the vills walled in a bit sooner.
Oh, vills are fighting. That's not a good sign. You don't want to fight against forging scouts, especially scouts that are ultimately healing as the game goes on. He doesn't even trade out a single scout life there, loses a couple villagers, and now the tower's back under threat. We're still waiting for spears to come through. We got to get through that gate. It's 2 scouts, 1 spear. I think in the end, he might be able to push this away.
Yeah, the spear should push that away. But a lot of damage, a lot of idle time there.
Okay, even repairing the tower, I'm fine with that because he had 75 stone, right? You weren't going to be able to do anything else with that stone necessarily. And if you're going to buy stone to drop TCs, you're buying 100. So Castle Age in here for Hart. We do have husbandry and a couple of knights coming forward.
And the knights are scary because in that feudal transition, they can clean up the spears. And I think that's what happened at the forward base, and now it's going to happen underneath the tower too.
Yep, looking to take out the spears, but a good number of scouts, and we do have that tower providing some fire. The walls went up, so the villagers are at the very least safe, aside from the 2 that were just sent to their doom.
Against the knights, though, the tower isn't enough. They have armor.
Exactly.
Tower doesn't have fletching.
All right, tons of spears coming back, though. This will be the answer, at the very least, here from Dogao. So should be able to keep the tower alive. Pikeman now even coming in, so most definitely will be pushing these cavalry back before the tower ultimately goes down. Can they trade out the knight before they go? No, they can't. There's the retreat there from Hart. And Dogao, once again, is going to have to start rolling forward and maybe look for some damage, now finding himself in a 4-villager deficit.
Oh, if those knights come from the opposite side, they could jump those vills.
True, you got the overchop, and those 2 knights are thinking about it. Okay, we've deleted the wall, so the defense will be there in time.
Will it, though? It's light cav against knights.
Pikes arrive. We're fine.
Hart's trying to take the fight and loop from the other side, too, and try to go for the tower, maybe?
Yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about this fight, and yeah, he thinks better of it as well. Just passing, just passing.
And now that middle gold is accessible to both players, and we see Hart moving for the TC in the middle. So not going to opt for a TC on the outside, not going to take the food initially, going to opt for the wood TC.
Yeah, and I like this TC placement. It's more conservative, right? Again, you don't have to worry about this gold yet. There's so much gold available on this map that it can be such a disastrous decision to overcommit to the central gold, thinking that you need to control that in the long term. It's not relevant yet. It's not going to be relevant for a while. So play it more conservatively, get that TC up, continue getting your eco rolling. Hart will be the first one to 2 TCs with already a small villager advantage.
Right, and I like that gate. Keeps the vills safe just in case any knights were to run in and try to snipe them while it's going up.
A beautiful play here so far from the Georgian player. Also going to look to see where those fortified churches start coming down, right?
Indeed, they do provide a boost to your eco, and you want to see them everywhere eventually. But right now, it's a big investment into wood that you're kind of competing with for your TCs. But
he's got one up somewhere because we got monks on the field. So I imagine that's back at home. There it is, hitting the farming eco and maybe just barely touching that gold.
It should be hitting the gold. But if you've already spent your stone on the tower, it's a nice investment into the churches because you're not immediately going to use your wood for the TC, and you can save it for the churches.
Yeah, also just an incredible defensive structure, which is kind of why you see him place it where it is, up against his own walls. Can always garrison in there, and it acts like a mini castle.
Another skirmish of knights on the side, and I feel like the numbers are pretty similar, but again, that healing cavalry from the Georgians, you're never going to want to take a fight if you're Dogao, unless you're sure that you're going to be able to kill units, because they can just run back, and not only will they heal, but now they have monks on the field to heal them too.
Yeah, particularly considering the military upgrade deficit that you're in, right? Lacking that armor upgrade for your own cavalry. Now, at the same time, you do have the counter unit in the pikemen on the field, and that's why you can see it's very difficult here for the knights to find any damage as they look for raids. Unfortunately, housed is Hart, but how about this? The fortified church forward. This is, I think, again, another very smart, conservative way to start controlling that gold. You're not committing to a full castle drop where you have to build up the 650 stone. You're doing it with just a wood building. It's a lot easier to get up, builds quicker, and you have the military there to defend it.
And you can put your wheel cart there, and if you ever do get pushed off of the middle, you're just running back with your wheel cart. You're not really committed to that point yet.
Very, very good point. So here we go, though. Dogao looping his knights around. He's going to find these vills on stone. An immediate reaction, though, from Hart means that he's going to take as little damage as possible from this raid. 2 villagers going down, a third one, fourth one going down. Actually, still a very good find here from the knights. And unfortunately, never closing those walls means the knights are in and maybe into the back of the economy.
And on the other side, Dogao's wall, those knights from Hart can't get in. Those vills have to run. The mule cart has to run.
Well, one of the places they can run is to that fortified church. We have 1 monk in defense looking for a conversion. The knights are going to go ahead and tuck themselves away into the back of the base and maybe make a reappearance later in the game. Now you can see on the left side of your screen a bit of an engagement. This one also working out in Dogao's favor as he's got the pikemen up against the knights. Knights in full retreat. We've got some military coming home to try and deal with the knights, and they're going to look to batter their way outside of the walls.
Yeah, but those are knights that now need to be home. They're not forward. They're not controlling the middle, and Dogao's able to get that TC up. And Dogao also has a TC on the right-hand side on those berries on that food area we talked about.
Monk gets sniped, but 4 more monks on the field, all looking for conversions. How many come through? That's 2. Looking for a third here. Will he find it? Not sure he did because he decided to look for that garrison instead, but still a couple of knights picked up, and the rest of the knights pushed away. Very low health there for Dogao's army in full retreat. End of the day, Dogao, though, with that raid, actually builds a bit of a villager lead and has moved out to a 2nd and 3rd TC while all of that was happening.
Yeah, and I'm interested to see... Ooh, he has a castle. He has a castle right there. And I was going to say, what move is he going to make to take the middle? The move is going to be a castle.
And since he's kind of leading the rest of Hart's military away there on that, outer ring, if you will, should be relatively safe getting this castle up, even going for some stone walls just in case Hart was thinking about diving and trying to deny that. So villager lead now here for Dogao. I think things are looking pretty good when you start to consider that more farms will go down and the Slavs can build out their food economy and maybe now look for the Imperial
he's doing
aid
some
to push it back.
anti-castle houses maybe? He's just trying to push that castle a few tiles back and get a wall up.
Yeah, not bad, not bad. You buy yourself a little bit of space. You're not going to be able to deny it in the end. So now, while fletching is being invested in here for Hart, I think Dogao should just produce a few more villagers, drop a bunch of farms, and then idle and go up.
Well, that's one option, right? You can go up and try to force a Treb war. You could also commit to the Castle Age and try to fight in the Castle Age if you add in a workshop and go for a Ram and Petard push.
We'll see if that's what he decides to do then, as we see the third TC now being dropped on those berries there. For Hart, again, another good food option without having to invest all the wood. And since Hart has a total of 3 villagers on wood, I'd say he needs to make use of those berries.
He definitely does need some more wood. At least he has the mule carts he can move around in the center and essentially just whenever he needs wood, he suddenly has a lumber camp. He doesn't need to worry about not having the 100 wood to build one.
But resources are climbing for Dogao. So it's clear to me that with nothing in the queue and idling the TCs, he's 100% looking to go up and start that Treb battle in the center of the map.
And he already has the eco lead, so he can afford to idle. And he has the stone, where he can get that second castle and get 2 castle Treb production in the middle, or do a defensive castle at home to protect against these raids like the ones coming in here from Hart on the outside.
Yeah, perfectly fast reaction there for Dogao. Means he gets 1 conversion, gets a second conversion with the second monk, gets all the villagers into the TC, so no lives are lost. Overall, phenomenal defense. There's the click up to the Imperial Age, 3 minutes and counting till he gets there and the Treb production begins. Side of Hart, he's recognizing the same thing, but unfortunately a little bit later. So while the food and gold count is climbing, it's still going to be some time until he can get the click.
And I think Vodka keeping an eye on that converted knight and seeing that it's still healing even for Dogao.
That's pretty awesome. That is pretty awesome. Pike's looking to push the knights away. Both players not going to find too much economic damage at this point since we have TCs for safety. And in the center of the map, we have the castles. Ooh, a second castle attempt here from Hart. There are going to be some conversions coming through. But I'd say that's not too much of a problem. It is a little bit of a Vil swing, as now those Vils are going to die to the castle fire. But 2 castles to 1 and the quicker Imperial Age timing, I would much prefer to be in Dogao's position.
And he's really looking to take the middle, and he has the army on the outside. We see on the mini-map those red dots pushing the blue dots away, that the raid is repelled, and he's not going to need to get that castle to protect that extra TC of his. He can go directly to the commitment for the Trebor.
Also investing in that armor for his pikemen, devotion as well, given the number of monks that have been produced by his opponent. Needs to get back onto gold and wood, though, in order to get multiple Trebs out as soon as he hits the Imperial Age. He does have a minute lead. That's enough to get 2 Trebs out onto the field and immediately start working away on that castle.
He does. And it's always tricky to look at the blacksmith and see what upgrades he does on the way up. He's doing that melee armor upgrade, so he's thinking of going for a halb transition and doubling down on that pikeman line he's already invested in.
Yeah.
Second castle also for Hart, though, but he's at that timing disadvantage now.
Very much so. 20 seconds to go. Then we'll see the Trebs in the queue. Another investment into armor for the pikeman and or eventual halberdier. I think it looks pretty damn good for the Slav player that both players are trying to focus on the same part of the map, and you just have the timing advantage.
That you do. The monks there are kind of scary, and I'd almost like to see Dogao also do fletching. I mean, maybe even a double blacksmith on the way up. Just the more you get the fletching and bracer on your castles, the more room you have to operate around them.
Yeah, there is a point where castle fire is pretty underwhelming against cavalry in particular if you have no upgrades.
And here we have armor, we have imp, and we have 2 Trebs queued. 3rd and 4th Trebs are popping, and castles there to defend them.
Yeah, some extra fortified churches going down. Both players are into the Imperial Age at this point. But again, 2 Trebs on the field while the Trebs just go into production on the side of Hart. We've got 2 more on the way here for Dogao. So there's going to be repairs required, and there's going to have to be an attempt to snipe those Trebs, I think, if Hart ultimately wants to stay competitive in the center of the map. He's still looking for raids, and he is going to be diving underneath that TC, but we have pikemen in response on the chase there on the left side of your screen. Back towards the middle of the map, we can see 1 castle under fire, but the repairs have begun. Has 200 stone in the bank, is looking for block printing. I really like that for the 5 monks that he has at his disposal. Now the Manaspa come forward looking for snipes onto the Trebs. There's a lot of pikemen there. This is where you're hoping or wishing you had fletching for sure. 1 Treb goes down, but that will be it. And one of the castles goes down in return. That's a trade I'll take any day of the week.
Absolutely. And now we see Dogao doing what he probably should have done earlier, getting that gate up, just a bit of walling there so that the cav have to run farther around, maybe around the farms or around the side of the castles to get to the Trebs. But absolutely absolutely wonderful for him to clear that first castle, and I don't think Hart's going to be able to repair this next castle against 3, now 4 Trebs.
No, and I think Hart perfectly understands that, which is why he's going for chemistry of all things. If you're going to lose your castle and you need to have siege, it's going to be bombard cannons that you go to next. It's 5 Trebs now on the field, though, here for Dogao. It's equivalent economies, but the military lead in terms of numbers for Dogao. Granted, most of those are pikemen, but they're the perfect unit to be playing into right now when you're up against the Georgians.
Right, and now with the castles down, the pikemen even can think about coming forward, and they don't do much damage to Trebs, but they are a melee unit. They will take them out eventually if they can close the distance and fight them.
Yeah, this is looking very, very scary for Hart. He's going to go for as many conversions as he can. He does get 5 conversions across the board. Now the monks will do some healing. The Manaspa and the pikemen turn around to take the fight against solely pikemen. The trebuchets are under fire here from Hart. Can he keep them alive? What's the accuracy of Dogao's Trebs? Okay, one of those shots lands. The repairs aren't there, so I think eventually these Trebs are going to go down. Wow, that is some horrible accuracy
Trebs are not
from the
accurate
Slav
against
Trebs.
each other.
Okay, one does go down in the end. The other 2 are in full retreat. So go the villagers. So go the mule carts. So go the monks. Look, we have a mule cart party back here in the.
Oh my gosh!
What is this? 6 mule carts at this point.
That
you can use those to do some blocking, I guess. Retreating underneath the tower. I don't really know what the options though are here from Hart, as you have to evacuate the center of the map, and your military's just not there. Hand cannons looks like what he thinks might keep him alive.
And it looks like this is gonna. If Hart has a way to win, it's gonna be another long game like we had in that first one. He's gonna have to hope that the Georgians might be able to outlast the Slavs, but the Slavs, with those ability to go for Drazina Halbs, a very good civ to play against a cav civ in the long run.
Yeah, good against a cav civ. Not good against hand cannons though. So what do you?
They need some siege.
Exactly. That's what I was going to ask. What do you do once you get that? Once those hand cannons are revealed to you? Because I don't think he's caught wind of it just yet. This would be his first opportunity to see it, and now I'll look to see whether or not he decides to switch anything up. He of course is going for Cavalier and beginning the Cav armor upgrades. That could also be a relatively effective unit against low numbers of hand cannons, for sure.
Even against high numbers of hand cannons don't really have the greatest fire rate. They do a lot of damage, but you can overwhelm them with Cav. Siege and Cav, both strengths of the Slavs, options for dealing with the hand cannons, as long as, well, bombard cannons can deal with some of the siege components, but the cavalry always are a good option.
Oh, this is always such a tough position. Having to micro villagers to constantly repair trebuchets that are under fire. Yes, you're targeting the castle because you're hoping to push back a little bit, maybe garner a small advantage for yourself, but just the upkeep of your attention on these Trebs, right? And you need to do other things as well. You need to get those upgrades. You need to expand your economy, and boom, okay, I gotta come back, start repairing again.
Yeah, but it's the hard thing. You click the vills on the castle, and they're going to repair the castle forever.
Yeah, easy.
Click the vills on the Trebs, they fully repair it, and then you got to go back 5 seconds later and repair it again.
Exactly. But we just have the hand cannon numbers are starting to increase. We do still have those monks there to at least threaten the cavalry when they come in, but we have light cav as well. Those are going to try.
And there's the GG.
Okay.
He's not going to wait for it. He's just going to call it.
No, this was just about the timings, you know. You came to attack me, I was walled, I managed to get to your wood line, then to your base as well.
Yeah, the raid killed me.
Could raid a lot.
Too much idle time.
What a treat. They're doing the analysis for us.
They are. They're not typing to each other.
No, not typing to each other, but it's amazing to me, kind of the attitude of the players here, right? And to have that openness with each other right after a game in the middle of a set, trying to figure out where it went wrong, trying to figure out what either of them could have done a little bit better. Dogao kind of citing what we did, which was in the mid game there, finding that opening on the front of the base, diving in, killing a couple vills underneath the TC, killing a couple villagers on gold as well. That's exactly what he needed. This is the kind of opening he needed to just extend the eco advantage a little bit and therefore be the first one to the Imperial Age with the double castle in the middle. And if you're both going to approach the strategy in the same exact way, the person who's got the better timings is going to win.
Yeah, and that's something, if you watch Dogao play a lot, as I mentioned during that game, he's the player who likes to add that army during that feudal transition, and here it really paid off for him getting that timing, as he said. All those scouts underneath that tower, when the vills, they had nowhere to go, they tried to run, they weren't walled. Maybe a bit of better walling preemptively from Hart could have staved that off. Maybe some better army positioning, being aware that the middle was opening could have helped. It's a tricky map to play, and players, if they're not used to that corridor down the middle, that's kind of unique to this map. They don't see that in all of their other maps at the same time, so you have to get used to it and prepare for it.
Yeah, super difficult. If anything, this might be one of the maps where it feels the least decided in terms of a consensus on how to play it by the players, right? We've seen
Right.
some players fully commit to the middle from the beginning, right? They hit the castle age with 650 stone, and they're trying to control it from the get-go.
Exactly.
That's not even what happened here, right? Both players were dancing a bit in the castle age, and then eventually looking for control. We've also seen players completely concede the middle, expand outward, and then maybe with a stronger late game, return to the middle and look for the push. And so it definitely doesn't feel to me like this game, or this map in particular, is figured out. But either way, hopefully a confidence-building win here for Dogao as he evens the score up at 1-1, and we're at least going to a game 4 in this set.
At least that'll be a good confidence boost for him, as you say, after having a good set against Doubt yesterday. Wasn't able to finish that one off, but still, even that Dry River game, how long did that last? An hour, 30 minutes plus. He's had 2 very competitive games. He's 1-1, and I'm sure he's going to look to improve on that after our ad break.
And now, a word from our partners. Are you looking for true surround sound? Well, you're in luck, pal. The U-Rage Sound Zeed 400 gaming headset gives you real 360-degree surround sound. With features like pinpoint precision, crystal clear bass, and immersive audio quality, you can end your losing streak. Get ready for sound so lifelike you'll swear you're on the battlefield. With this headset, you'll hear every enemy approach, every call, every detail, only without the clamor of villagers. Gamers, listen to you rage. Get yours on Müller.de.
Welcome back to the Noble Apartment Cup in Game 3 between Hart and Dogao. Things are all tied up at 1-1, and it's Hart who now gets the choice of where we go next. We've talked about him very much, an Arabia-style player. Arabia is in the pool. One of my concerns, though, as we take a look at the Civ draft and the map draft again, is which Civs have already been used. And the fact that now that's the first and second picks off the table here for Hart. And importantly, it's his first pick in the Georgians that ends up taking a loss.
And civs that we thought might have been used on Arabia, Magyaras and Georgians. So maybe Hindustanis are an option. Maybe Bohemians? Maybe Bohemians?
Maybe Ethiopians.
I'm wondering what he now uses if we go to his other home map of Citadel. He doesn't have one of those fast, aggressive water civs. Other Vikings are for Pacific Isles?
Vikings or Pacific Isles, I think we're 100% settled on that. Then, Citadel, I could see a couple different options. Funnily enough, I could also see Bohemians played there. Because as you mentioned before, sometimes that map ends up getting reduced to that quicker, like the quick Imperial Age.
Right.
And then again, just dealing with a siege and kind of a singular push because you only have half of the total map width to work with when it comes to pushing, and everyone always gets their walls up on that map. And so that could be rather effective for a Bohemians push. At the same time, I could also see Hindustanis end up there, and then maybe you go for a bit of a curveball pick like the Ethiopians on Arabia.
You could. I feel like Vietnamese for Arabia now match up really well against all these civs. Hindustanis, the camel civ, hand cannoneers, but going to the great archers and imperial skirms of the Vietnamese. Ethiopians and archer civ should be countered by the Vietnamese. Same thing with Vikings or even Bohemians.
Now you got me worried.
I'm liking Dogao's civ draft here. I think Vikings are going to be really hard to deal with on Pacific Isles.
I think they will be,
but
yes.
the other two maps, Italians, Dravidians, Vietnamese.
And to end up in a situation where you feel maybe disadvantaged on your own home maps is not a position I envy.
Right. And Dravidians, Italians, so early in the draft kind of blocked some of the more aggressive water civs from Hart's access there.
Yeah. Well, again, we don't know which map we're going to just yet. Ultimately, Hart gets the choice, and it's down to those 3 maps. He could go to his own opponent's home map in Pacific Isles. He could go to his comfort pick of Arabia, or go ahead and bring us to Citadel for something that's very much more of a hybrid approach to the game. Even Citadel itself, I think, has shown kind of 2 very interesting ways to play. We've seen players like Leary, who typically invest in much safer docks and therefore galley play coming into the Feudal Age, versus shorter dock positionings for players that are looking for fire galleys and maybe to create a little bit more action early in the Feudal Age and ultimately a win. But with that, we are on to our third map of the day, and it will be Arabia that Hart goes to, that comfort pick. There's the Vietnamese pick that you were asking for, and it looks like Hindustani's on the other side here for Hart.
Okay, so a Civ matchup where you have the Camel Civ for Hart, but the Archer Civ for Dogao. Dogao not going to be looking to go into the Knight line probably in this matchup. Just going to be pure Archers. I guess somewhat similar to that first matchup we had where it was the Cav play from one player and the crossbow play from the other player. We might be seeing a repeat of that.
Absolutely. Vietnamese, of course, get the benefit of knowing where their opponent's starting TC is right off the rip. And it's Hart who's actually coming forward for some pretty early scouting while he gets the barracks up, and he's 3 seconds away from the Feudal Age.
And let's just note that we are about 6 minutes into the game. It took production a couple minutes to get us in, so those barracks, it's not an immediate barracks.
Yeah, this isn't a militia rush or anything like that, which would be a very interesting choice, to say the least. Loom on the way. We've got the first eco upgrades coming in as well. We already saw the stable going down here for Hart, so playing into his classic preference of the scouts. On the other side, as Feudal Age arrives, it will be scout play as well. Spear's already in production here for Dogao, being the second one to the Feudal Age, probably recognizing that he's going to be in a bit more of a defensive posture, at least initially.
Yeah, and if we could look at the scouting information of both players, it'd be nice to see what they were able to come up with as they were in the Dark Age. We see Dogao notes that Hart has that gold on the back of his base and just now finding his secondary gold. Hart, on the other side, has found that front gold in the berries of Dogao, but hasn't found the main gold of the woodline yet.
Yeah, doing the big loop. We've got walls already starting to come up across the front of the bases. Good walls around the woodline as well. I mean, one scout's not going to threaten those villagers, but the scouting information would maybe allow you to target them as the second scout arrives to the scene. Do need to make sure that we get the repairs on the wall, and we will get that repair. Palisade walls will complete, villagers will get back to working, and now it's about placing those farms and making sure you don't get behind in the race towards the Castle Age.
And placing those farms, but going to be better for Hart as he did manage to fit in horse collar. Dogao adding farms before he clicked that.
Yeah, we got walls up around the berries. We got 3 scouts on the field for each player and more in the queue. Who's the first to put up an archery range? That's my question.
You'd think it's probably the Vietnamese player, but I mean, this is a matchup where we might end up seeing both players going cav archers. That's just the meta these days sometimes. I know it's not Doubt playing, but as Mem's saying, eventually we're going to see Aztec cav archers.
Dear God. Dear Lord. That'll be the day. That'll be the day for sure. All right. We got walls continuing to come up. Scouts are looking for damage where they can, just looking to harass different areas, force reactions, spears out as well for both players. Taking a look at the food count, Hart has a few more on farms than Dogao does, and like you said, he's working with horse collar on top of all of that. Still haven't seen an archery range go down for either player, so there could be a bit of a hand. There we go. Making me a liar. As soon as I say it, Hart decides to make me a liar and actually goes counter to what we were thinking. It's actually the Hindustanis that is going for the archery range first.
And we'll see if he goes for archers or skirms. Looking at the minimap, I don't think he's on his gold yet, so this is probably just going to be a scout skirm composition from him. You do, in the long run, probably want the skirms against the Vietnamese anyway, so you can start adding them in with your scouts to pick off some spears and be ready to anticipate. Maybe he's seen Dogao go for that Feudal Age archer transition before. He might be thinking, okay, I need to be aware of it this game too.
Now, we did have 2 fights going on simultaneously there, and Dogao did manage to pick off 1 villager while losing 1 extra scout, or 1 military unit more overall. But this is a great find here from Hart. 5 scouts finding the walling villager means the wall will be delayed, and it's a nice little eco kill.
Yeah, poor timing for Dogao. He sent the Vill out, but he wasn't keeping track of the scout location, and he didn't know that it was safe to do so.
Yeah, so 1 archer in the queue with the gold that he had remaining as he reached the Feudal Age, and he is moving 5 villagers to gold. I actually wonder if Hart's thinking it's going to be an archer investment as opposed to skirms.
Is that Vill going to go down?
Ooh, 1 more hit. Doink!
Again, 2 walling Vills for Dogao, just not knowing where his enemy's scouts were and not having the spears in position to protect the walls.
This is where Hart thrives as a player. Hart absolutely thrives as a player in a scout war on a map like Arabia, where, yes, eventually you can get your base walled, but it's going to take time, right? And so in that time, he's going to make your life literal hell.
And this feels almost like a repeat of that game Dogao played on High Tides against ACCM, where all of a sudden the scouts were picking off his Dockvilles left and right. And it feels like he shouldn't be taking this eco damage, and yet we find him down. It's that 2-to-1 eco KD for just those 2 vulnerable walling villagers.
Just now, working on his archery range. I think back at home, too, we might already even have blacksmith investment. Yep, there it is from Hart. So waiting for the fletching to come through. He's got the resources for it. 2 archers on the field. No more in the queue, though.
And he will be going archers, not for the skirms, just straight for
Exactly.
the archers.
All right, coming forward with those archers. Not going to be too threatening until they get fletching. They'll still be decent against the spears. We do finally get that portion of the wall up, but we're going to loop around and still plenty of openings here for the scouts to get in. We do have some defensive scouts posturing around this wall, but with the spears and the archer coming forward, Hart can ultimately win out in this battle, but he's got to wait for his military to arrive. Not an ideal fight for him to take. He loses 3 scouts in that.
That was not the start to the engagement he wanted, and there were more spears there, only 2 archers.
Yeah, 2 archers, no fletching. So, I mean, they will, obviously, with their range, be able to take the spears out eventually. It's going to take some time, and that's just enough time for the walls to come up here from Dogao. You got to make sure you keep them up. House walling behind. Love to see that.
But no
fletching on the way for both players.
No fletching yet, though, and that's going to let the houses go up.
Yeah, houses up, walls complete now here
But
for
no,
Dogao.
it's not. It's not complete. It's Hindustani scouts. They have an attack bonus against buildings, and they're through.
What happened? He had a second villager there.
Hindustani scouts, they get through those houses. They don't have armor. They don't have the same armor they have in the later ages in the feudal age now, and they are through right away.
Yeah, this is a bit of a mess here. Obviously, he does have a decent number of military to defend and will ultimately be able to push this back, but it's just not the kind of thing you wanted to have to invest in, right? You felt like you had the walls up. Everything else is complete there. He's bringing up a blacksmith for himself at home. Or brought the blacksmith up, maybe even a second archery range, yep, to match the numbers. But there you have it. Hart behind all of this has invested in the farms. He has 18 working on food, and Castle Age is on the way.
Yeah, and there he goes. Dogao going to be a bit farther behind, and he opened the wall to let the army through, but that's just going to let the scouts get right in.
Yeah, scouts get in, but there are spears there. As long as he chases, should be fine. Does have an opening on that wood line, but it is very annoying because now you will have to chase these scouts for the next 5 minutes.
And that's going to take so much of your attention, and you're going to be chasing not just with your spears, but also with an archer or 2.
Yeah, looking for maybe a snipe onto a farming villager, at least going to harass, then run away.
That hill by the farms is tricky because the scouts can stand on top of it and snipe down on the vill.
Yep. Archer armor coming in now for Hart as well. He's indexed into skirms, right? He sees that his opponent is onto archers after he created a few archers himself. Now he's going to invest in the skirms, making his way to the Castle Age 1 minute away. Not too far behind is Dogao, as he also matches archer armor for archer armor.
I'm just keeping my eye on that Bloodlines icon there for Dogao to see if he decides he's going to go for that Cav Archer switch or might just play crossbows again.
Oh, stand ground. Loses a scout. Low health scouts at this point aren't going to find any more damage, but they can continue to find information.
And we see skirms being queued there also for Hart. So just those couple archers initially to apply some pressure, and now he's going to go for scout skirm. And probably camel skirm as he goes up.
Oh, good wall attempt, but doesn't find
quite
it.
there.
Doesn't get the tap on the house to ultimately turn those scouts around and get the damage. I think one of the important things for Dogao is that his walls actually extend to the edges of the map, right? Versus the egg walling that's happened on the other side and forcing Hart to at least place his second TC outside of his initial walls, while it will provide decent safety to the villagers on that wood line.
Yeah, won't be too hard for Hart just to extend the walls to that wood line or to the south of the map even. But I think he's going to be safe enough for that TC. What I'm seeing on the minimap is all of the gold locations for these players, aside from their main gold, are all
Very forward.
towards the middle of the map. Even the extra golds, just all right in the middle.
Well, here come the Hindustani Camels. Here comes a very early university upon reaching the Castle Age here for Dogao, along with Bodkin and Crossbow. Means that these range units are going to be near peak power in the Castle Age, but Elite Skirm is the response. Bodkin Arrow on the way there. We've got Wheelbarrow coming in to match the Wheelbarrow that Dogao's had for a short while. But all of that results in a TC advantage here for the Hindustani player. And obviously, slightly cheaper vills. They're going to have a very easy time keeping up that vill production and ultimately extending an eco lead.
Right, and now here's the fight with the skirms as Dogao adds in a TC. Elite skirm's going to come in just a moment.
There it is, and we have the hill, if we want it.
Hill and ballistics. The university's up, but no ballistics yet. There, it's clicked.
Sniping away a scout.
So the difference between the first game and here was that initially Hart was going for the cav archers, and he didn't open with the skirmishers. Here he's going to have a much earlier counter to the crossbows, and now we see the positioning on the map. He's the one who's forward controlling the location of Dogao's crossbows.
Yeah, and with this control, he's now going to reach for his third TC. So as the second completes for Dogao, the third one's coming up for Hart. Feels like he has just the slightest edge throughout the course of this game. He's sporting 3 more villagers and an equivalent army number. He's going to harass over this wood line. Of course, the crossbows can take this nice hill in defense, but they are playing against their own counter unit in the skirms, so the micro's got to be on point.
And with ballistics, he can still take this fight. The skirms only have +1 armor, so crossbows, especially if they're on a hill, still can do a decent job of killing them.
Yeah, for the investment into that early university, having no ballistics yet is a little bit rough. Obviously, he doesn't have the resources to do it.
Wait, he clicked it earlier. He must have canceled it.
Did he cancel it then? Okay.
Cancel it.
Now he has the resources for it again. I wonder if he will attempt to go for it this time around, because I agree with you very much. I mean, ballistics, especially when you have another score, aids the Scorpion as well, right?
I mean, where has he spent his wood so far? University, Workshop, Scorpion, and TC. Hart has just done 2 TCs. And the just the Elite Skirmisher upgrade has bought him all this time to invest into those TCs. His military numbers are much lower now, but so far he only sees 1 unit from Dogao, and he has the counter unit.
And guess who's getting ballistics first?
It's Hart.
That's pretty wild. That's surprising to me, and speaks to maybe a little bit of a mismanagement or a misread here from Dogao, right? To go for the immediate university on reaching Castle Age, and then to forego the very investment that you built it for, right? And then inevitably delaying your second and third TC rather to be behind that of Hart. Now, it's just a 6 villager advantage. I don't want to paint it as the end of the game, but it is an advantage. And ultimately, now the skirms are going to have ballistics first in this battle up against the crossbows. Crossbows retreating for the next 30 seconds until they get the ballistics of their own.
And look at the resources collected. Already 800 ahead, 900 ahead for Hart. Maybe the advantage for Dogao is that ballistics will apply to that Scorpion now.
Exactly. No, and Scorpion, a really good response here to the skirms. Does need to keep it alive, of course, and I'm not sure he will. Finds a couple of shots onto the skirms, with the skirms in a solid formation, ultimately take the Scorpion down. I'd say right now, Hart is very happy with his position here on Arabia as the Hindustani player.
That Castle Age transition was just so much better for him, and now we see Dogao cav archers.
Cav archers into skirms. I mean, again, the mobility is great, and the unit is great in mass, but once you're just producing into the counter unit.
It felt like the crossbow was a reaction to go against the potential camels,
right?
Avoid needing for the cav archers. Here,
Mango.
He's a good Mango shot there.
Mango's a no-go there, as the skirms will turn tail and run. And so we continue to look at the ecos and how they develop. I think importantly, still no horse collar on the side of the Vietnamese player.
Heavy plow there for Hart. And horse collar, it's cheaper. It's cheaper for Dogao and the Vietnamese.
Right. It's cheaper, of course. He's not investing into too many farms since he's playing a wood gold composition for now. But ultimately, you are going to want to get at least horse collar as you look to replace those farms a second time and ultimately work your way towards the Imperial Age. I mean, I'm looking at the food count for Hart right now, and it's looking absolutely stellar. He's already got the buildings to click up, maybe a market. You sell some wood, you sell some stone, you go to the Imperial Age, and you just win by out-teching your opponent.
I mean, you're the Hindustanis. Your villager is going to be so cheap. You get Imp anyway. It's not like
we're 27 minutes in
and an early push.
Yeah,
he can do pretty. It feels like he's just so far ahead. He can do whatever he wants at this point, as long as he's not suddenly going to take a whole bunch of damage from Dogao. Yeah, it's a small cav archer raid, but he'll be fine.
Yeah, you lose a Vil, that's all right. You still have a Vil lead. You still have the majority of the initiative, keeping most of the military of your opponent back at home. Yeah, still looking for the gold to come through. I want to see the market usage. We're floating 900 wood. We're well over 1,000 food. We've got the stone for a castle, so maybe thinking about a forward castle. But yeah, only 4 on gold is obviously not enough. Oh, there's the market. We didn't have the market.
And where does the castle go? He could put the castle anywhere. He could do it defensively on those 2 goals to the south. He could try to take maybe that hill between them to the north in the middle, kind of focus on Dogao's gold, or he could just go forward and put it directly on Dogao's face with his army control.
Okay, market's up. Heavy market usage immediately clicks to the Imperial Age. We do have 850 stone in the bank now. Where would you put the castle?
Depends on how you feel about your army. If you're confident, you go forward and do it on that hill. Right there, and it gives you that access to those 2 golds of Dogao. It's not too far forward.
I was going to say
too far back.
I think
but he's thinking better of it now. He sees those mangonels and decides.
If you could guarantee its placement, it probably goes on the hill that the skirmishers were just on. Obviously, you couldn't guarantee that placement. You go for the next most aggressive castle position, and then when you see the 2 mangonels, you go, actually, no. Let's go fully conservative. Let's not throw this game. I definitely am in the lead, and so he goes for his first castle placement a little bit closer to home.
Could snipe those farms. I would love to see that.
That actually would be
He's not going to
wild.
pay attention to them anymore.
No, Monk gets sniped, so the relic gets dropped, but it will
Oh,
be...
he's going for it. He was too late.
Ah, bummer. And they have not enough health to really contest any of those villagers and no upgrades. So there we go. The villagers turn on them, clear that up, and they can get back to farming. All right, now Dogao's aware of the castle because of the fact that the mangoes took that fire. Look at all the eco upgrades that just came in. First stone, first gold, and first farming upgrade here for Dogao. But he's sitting on 170 food, and he's got 30 gold in the bank, and his opponent is 1 minute away from Castle Age. Ooh, I think this is actually somewhat a disastrous castle position.
If he commits to it and then Hart gets Imp, he's going to lose a Trebor. And once Hart gets Imp, if he can get his upgrades, he can secure 1 more hill and 1 more forward castle to get the Treb location.
Yeah. Now, of course, it will buy you a little bit of time as Hart is trying to work through that castle to eventually turn on to your main base. But like you say, it's a massive investment of resources that you will ultimately lose, and then set your opponent up in the position to now turn that hill into their very own castle position.
And Dogao losing the crossbows there, that's the army he would have been using to contest that hill. That crossbow trying to run off the edge of the map but can't escape the skirms. And, ooh, Hart even going to find that TC.
Finds the TC, might be able to deny it, but it is just 5 skirmishers, and he has to actually micro them in order to deny. I think the TC goes up regardless. My fear here is the long-term gold options for Dogao. Yes, right now he has access to those 2 forward golds protected by the castle, but like we said, with Trebs already on the way, I don't think he's going to have many gold options for much longer.
And that's what that TC was for. It was for securing that extra gold. Now Hart doesn't deny the TC, but at least is aware of it. He's
Goulam's on the field. They're going to make quick work of that mangonel. Actually, it's the skirmishers who do it first.
And now you can see the Goulam's just getting ready to raid. There's a blue blob on the minimap going to the north of that castle, just looking to...
That's all. You can just run in, my friend.
That's a lot of skirms. Skirms that now have Bracer, they're going to kill villagers.
Yep, these are very deadly. They're pushing him off of gold as well. And now we have 1 Treb on the field. We are going to have to keep that Treb protected because it will have to extend. Oh, look at that. Another castle placement just to make it easy for those Trebs to sit atop that hill and work away on the Vietnamese castle. These are Vietnamese castles as well, right? Not very strong. So in the end, I think it's going to be difficult for Dogao to find his way out of this one. Needs 2 minutes and 35 seconds to get to the Imperial Age. And he knows it. He knows it. He's going to call it right there. 2-1 now for Hart, taking the lead.
See if he has anything to say after that.
I host and go to the bathroom.
All right. So
A lot less to say.
A lot less to say.
I think it's
you
a
knew
lot.
what
You have a lot less to say when now you're staring down a single loss. That could bring an end to your tournament run. Right. I think this is where potential realities are setting in, and now you really got to do the mental gymnastics, the mental work to push yourself through that. I mean, that's one of the tests of being an elite athlete in any sport. Right.
Keeping your mentality going. We see that. No. We talked about ACCM and Yo holding on forever in their games. Dogao's going to have to do that now in this tournament.
Right.
And if we think about his positioning in the draft, his home map, maybe not the best Civ matchup with Vikings available for Hart on Pacific Isles. But on the other hand, if he goes to Citadel, he does have Italians or Dravidians available. And we don't know what Civ Hart's going to play there.
No, that's a complete gamble.
But I think Dogao, if you're Dogao, what map do you think? Do you go your home map, or do you try to go where you might have the better Civ matchup?
That's a really good question, because at this point, if you had asked me this yesterday, I probably would have followed the logic of Mem, which I really like. In a Swiss format, I think you go for your home map because you want to get at least the map wins.
Right.
You know, if you're going to work your way through all the universal possibilities for tiebreakers, getting games does matter. At this point, though, when you have to get the set win to even keep your tournament hopes alive, I think maybe you go back to the previous logic that a lot of people follow, which is win on your opponent's map, to your point, maybe with a better Civ matchup,
right,
and then end on more of a comfort pick, and hopefully with a strategy that you have in mind for your own home map.
I feel like in this map pool, you're playing all the maps all the time anyway.
They should all be considered somewhat home maps.
Exactly. You should be familiar with them. You should have strategies for all of them. They're in the back room playing these maps every single day.
Yeah.
I think looking at the Civ draft and seeing where you can find the Civ advantages, taking that first could be a better strategy than just taking the map you're more comfortable on.
Yeah. Well, either way, not an easy decision to make, as you can see by our discussion here. So we're going to give Dogao a little bit of time to make that decision as we head to a quick commercial break. We'll catch you just on the other side for Game 4 of the series.
And now, a word from our partners.
Eek! A mouse! A mouse!
What is it, dear? Why you rage? Oh, honey. That's no ordinary mouse. It's the Reaper 250. With this mouse in your household, you never have to be scared again.
Yes, the U-Rage Reaper 250, featuring DPI control, advanced ergonomics, RGB lighting, and customizable buttons, is the perfect addition to every competitive household. Why U-Rage? It's all good. Get yours on mueller.de.
Welcome back to the Noble Apartment Cup. It is do or die time here for Dogao. He's got to put 2 wins together in a row to take the series and to keep his playoff hopes alive. We've been asking ourselves the question, which map do you go for? Again, we can see arguments either way. Ultimately, it's Dogao's choice, and we'll find out soon enough what he's going to go for. But like we said, I think now it's about the mental game. It's even in some ways less about, that decision alone. And
you need to win 2 games no matter what. And they're both very different than what we've seen before. They're both going to be water maps.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's Citadel, you open water and transition, or Pacific Isles, well, maybe that's a transport map, maybe more than a water map these days, but we're still very afraid of those Viking longboats.
And you know what? If anything, maybe that's where you draw some of your confidence from. This will be a very distinct stylistic switch-up in going to these other 2 maps, right? Okay, I've been playing on maps that maybe are a little bit more favored towards my opponent in Hart, where he is quite classically known for being good on land maps, fairly open maps with a lot of scout play. Either way, away we go. It will be Pacific Isles, so it's his own home map that we're going to go to. It's Dogao in the blue. It's Hart in the red. We have Dravidians as the pick for Dogao. We were wondering what the answer might be.
And part of me was kind of curious, maybe he'd be thinking to play Berbers the way Yo played the Spanish yesterday, trying to go for those conquistadors. You could do something similar with the Camel Archers, but that's not really Dogao's style. He's going to go for the Dravidians, play this like a standard water map, the type of water map he's been so comfortable playing for however long he's been playing Age of Empires, since the 2005 or so.
Yeah, we're also not going to get any Transportville forward dock shenanigans like we did in that Leary game. Both players opting for, yes, forward docks on their own islands, but going to invest into those fishing economies, going to look to scout those extra islands. We can already see Heart's scout over here on the right-hand side. I'm looking for the red dot, which I don't seem to see. Might still be on his home island. Oh, he's transporting over now, so he's going to the left.
Yeah, and 2 very equally sized islands here.
It's a yin-yang.
We're not going to have that crescent hat.
Yeah, no, it's very even, like you say. So pretty similar generations. You'd pretty much be happy to secure either island. Now, earlier we were talking a little bit about, though, whether or not in certain Civ maps you want to split islands or you want to match your opponent, you know,
Right.
in the Castle Age, island for island. What are you thinking here?
I feel like if you're the Dravidians, you want to be on the same island as the Vikings.
Okay.
You want to make sure that you're not going to lose to longboats on the water, and then suddenly you're on one island, the Vikings have the other, and you can't get back because they control the water with the longboats. You want to constantly be fighting them on the land.
All right, well, Hart's scouted the right. He's comfortable with the information he's gathered. Now he's going to move his scout back over to the other side and get a little information over here. As has been the case in every single game so far, he will be up to the Feudal Age first.
Hart is very clean on his build orders. He's going to go up as fast as he wants to, and look at that idle TC time, only 3 seconds.
Yeah, and also major vill investment here from Dogao. Is this a fast castle now?
It could be. It could be some type of fast castle play to control the middle.
Yeah, it's an
You're so
extra
far
fishing
apart.
ship. Extra fishing ship. Already we've got 3 vills more. Now loom on the way.
And the good thing about Dravidians on this map, too, is their fishing ships carry more fish.
Yeah.
So there are so few fish on this map, they end up being very far from your dock. The Dravidian fish will be more effective than the Viking fish will be.
That's a really good point. All right, well, it's Hart who moves villagers out first, and he's chosen his island. It's going to be the Eastern Island on the right-hand side. We still haven't had that decision made just yet by our Dravidians player, but like you said, maybe hoping to end up on the same island as his opponent. Here come the villagers forward now. We'll look for them to load up and see which direction they go.
And you don't have much resource on your home island. You have that gold, you have that stone, but everything else will be on those 2 islands to which you have to migrate.
Yeah, barracks on the way. 5 more villagers arrived to the wood line. Here comes the first eco upgrades. A minute away still here in the Feudal Age timing for Dogao. I'm taking a look at what's in the queue. It's a galley play as opposed to a fire galley play, but still working with just 1 dock, it looks like.
It looks like it. We'll see if the second dock is maybe... You have the villagers on the middle island. You can't do another dock on the middle island. Maybe give you, if nothing else, more fish access.
Okay, we did end up on the same island. Take a look at that. Just now landing there on the southern part of the right-hand side. So the Dravidians gets what they want, at least the way we're playing it out in our brains. Here comes the barracks as well. A little bit late to get that second military building down right when you hit the Feudal Age, but not going to be too much worse for wear. We do see the archery range almost completed already here for Hart. It's going to be fire galley defense while we've got galleys coming forward, maybe looking to snipe those fish.
Yep, but of course the Vikings are going to go for those galleys, and eventually you can go for longboats, or you can just upgrade to war galley and keep pumping out the war galleys with how cheap they are. Depends on what you have left over.
Okay, here comes the mill. Going to make use of those deer on the central island. Good defensive structure, though, I think, here for Hart, protecting a little bit of a gold and a stone.
Yeah, you want your military buildings in front of your gold, usually, just to make sure your production is in front of them, and you have the military in the position to defend it.
Yeah, it's 1 archer into skirmishers and spearmen, it looks like. The scouts find each other in the center of the island. It looks like, though, it's going to be a win here for Hart. What?
Nope.
Hart had more health.
It's a win for Dogao. You know, sometimes having more health doesn't matter if it doesn't line up.
If the
properly.
timing isn't right,
Yeah,
but
the
that's pretty
timing
wild,
matters.
man. That is pretty wild.
And meanwhile, that 1 galley that was forward on the fish gets pushed away by Dogao, so that fiery defense working out. And again, we're just seeing the distance between the 2 players and how far you have to sail to harass the fish. Lets Dogao play more defensively.
Okay. Forward to harass the wood line. 1 spear, 1 skirm, 1 archer. No fletching, though, so the villagers can sit here and withstand the harassment for quite some time.
And we've seen this in games before, Dravidian skirmishers. They shoot faster, and against this composition, skirm, spear, archer,
Ooh,
the skirm just wins.
Don't want to lose that Vil, though. And it looks like it will go down in the end. So by a commitment of the military for it, you do lose the archer, you lose the spear, and might end up losing this skirmisher as well.
Now, if you're Hart, in other situations, you might want to go for a stable and a scout transition against skirms, but you're the Vikings.
Yeah,
you really
that
don't have a
sucks.
good stable.
Yeah, that's not going to feel good, but like you say, it might be a necessity.
Against Dravidian skirms, skirm versus skirm, the Dravidians are going to win that.
Right? So we have the blacksmith coming up, but it's already been completed, and fletching is already in here on the side of the Dravidians. Dogao getting housed for the time being while he looks to trade out against that archer. More skirmishers joining the fray. The villager is trying to do what he can to help out. But Dogao's going to be pretty happy with those skirms now, even threatening the villager life.
Yeah, and that villager, he gets the trade down on the vills. And I'm liking this position here for Dogao, at least on this land. The big question is just going to be these players. They're not going to kill each other. They're going to get to the castle age. What happens with the longboats?
Yeah, definitely. And they're not even really focused on water for the time being. Hart, of course, continuing to do what he does best and invest in that food economy. 18 on food to the 5 on food of Dogao. So while he's taking the worst end of the military trades on land, which is what we had mentioned the Dravidians definitely want to take advantage of, he's already making his way towards those castle age resources. Way more farms.
And look at all that gold that Dogao has too. Once he gets a market, he can just buy his way up. Buy his way up and still have that skirmisher advantage on the middle island.
Not just a huge food lead, he's got wheelbarrow with the similar Vill counts here. I mean, Vikings, of course, right? But is what I mean is like this is just going to work wonders for him.
Yeah, and Dogao's going to have to rely on that market. And I wonder if that's his plan. Just go heavy on gold and rely on the market, knowing that the Viking player probably will have that better farming eco, so you can match the timing.
Yeah, but now don't you feel like you need to do more damage than what you're doing right now?
I feel like as long as you're maintaining, like, at least control with the skirms, you're fine. The one thing you don't want is to get picked out of position by the scouts.
Yeah, control with the skirms is going to be key, but here comes those terrifying Viking scouts. But honestly, in the feudal age, they're perfect. They're as good, right? In this moment, they're as good as any scout against a skirm.
They're perfect. But, I mean, look at all the skirms that Hart lost while he was trying to chase that. Now, Hart will click up, but Dogao, only 4 on food. Dogao should not be far behind if he has a market, but that's the big if. He went double ranges.
Uh-oh.
Double range skirm commitment. There's the market, but he's going to be so late in clicking up compared to what he could be.
Yeah, those Vills got to get out of there. All right. Unfortunately, the Vill does go down in the end. The skirm count, though, is still pretty solid here from Dogao, but the hill is being held by Hart, and he still has those 2 scouts.
And remember, Hart can always go to the other island. He doesn't need to commit to staying here. If he feels like this becomes a land war, maybe he can get the water, just move his eco to the other island, and then do his TCs over there where he feels safer.
Yeah, minute and 30 to the castle age already. You can see Dogao now using the market. Like you had recommended, he bought 300 food for 500 gold nearly. And he still doesn't quite have the resources to click up just yet. Now, of course, Hart's going to dive in on the wood line. Not going to find any kills. Is going to look for more trades. Targeting the skirmishers with his scouts, but now on the retreat. Just buying himself some time, buying himself some space while he waits for that castle age to come in. He's got phenomenal resources banked up. I still haven't seen any more docks being dropped, so maybe both players are resigned to this being a land war more so than a water battle.
It feels that way, but I think we're going to see a transition as we get up to the castle age, like we've been thinking about the entire game with the longboats. There's armor on the scouts.
Scale barding, let's go. Viking scouts, Viking knights, let's go!
I actually got to think, does armor actually matter against the skirmishers for the scouts? I don't think it does.
Yeah, but it will matter against those 4 spears.
Yeah, spears have bonus attack. It doesn't stop that.
Yeah, but it's minorly effective, okay?
I think he could have probably gone for forging to clear the skirms faster, but...
Yeah, he follows it up in the castle age with Bodkin and an attempted TC. Of course, Dogao does see that TC going up, but it's harassment on both sides and more villagers going down. And actually, this is where the scale barding, it can matter because now the Vills have a much harder time fighting
against
back.
The villagers... there's so many Vills going down. That's a disaster.
That is actual disaster right there for Dogao. He's going to lose almost every single villager on the center island.
And, well, what did we say going into this match? Hart was faster to the feudal age every single game?
Every time.
Felt like he also had the much cleaner feudal age build order this game. As you said, getting those farms added in, getting up to the castle age much more cleanly, not needing to use the market like Dogao did.
Yeah, and do we still have those longboats coming out? Well, granted, it's only out of 1 dock. Eventually, he's going to take control of water. He's got 3 knights on the field, 2 more in the queue. And honestly, even these knights will be pretty effective against those 4 spears. And we have a few skirms still left alive. Knights are going to quickly make work of those spears, and then from there, turn their attention onto the skirmishers.
Well, spears still pretty effective.
Yeah, got to get the rest of the knights forward.
Maybe some foraging there might have helped against the spears a bit better, but the same principle applies. Dogao has the score lead, but doesn't feel like he actually has the lead in the game.
No, not at all. Just now going for Bodkin himself, but we've got 4 longboats, 5 longboats now out onto the open oceans. They're going to start rolling forward. The 1 villager TC on the central island. More villagers coming over to help. The knights are going to rotate around. They're going to maybe spot this right as it happens. How many vills go down? The military has moved away. There's no military here. There are no walls for Dogao either. He's got to retreat back into the transport ship. Honestly, the best option he has at this moment. But 2 villagers go down on top of the villagers that have already lost their lives. Brings the whole military back to deal with these knights and give himself the opening to maybe get in. But look at the longboats. Are they going to rotate around? This could be the end of the game right here. If you there it is.
There it is.
Wow. What a showing from Hart.
What a showing after a really long game on Dry River to open it.
Appreciate it.
Afterwards, falls behind on Tiar Garden, where we were concerned looking at the civs.
Unfortunately.
That's just, I mean, it's the cleanliness of Hart's play. It's exactly what we said he excels at, right? Which is the execution of strategies. He's not necessarily going to do anything mighty fancy. Maybe the fanciest thing he did here was go for scouts and knights as a Viking player. But for the most part, he never did anything that was super out of the ordinary for the civ or the matchup that he found himself in. He just had faster timings every single step of the way.
Yeah, even the game he lost was pretty clear, as they were talking about. Dogao just said, hey, the timing wasn't there for you that game.
Yeah, exactly. Well, there you have it. I mean, Hart with a 3-1 victory moves himself to 2 set wins, now sitting at 2-2 in the tournament, staring down a possible 3-2 if he can wrap it up tomorrow.
And what a great comeback for him, going down 0-2, but it was Louis and Yo.
And I think a lot of people can reflect on those first 2 series losses and see that the play was there, that the level of play was there, right? To put together 2 victories just like this.
Right. And, well, now he has to be happy about himself, and we're going to interview him in just a moment.
I guess I'll go talk to him in just a moment. I'll wait until it looks like he's just about set up. So I'm going to go ahead and jump off the desk and go get ready to talk to the man himself.
All right, and we're going to have a short ad break as Dash gets ready, and we'll get back to that interview right after this.
And now, a word from our partners.
Look, you know how exhausting it is to control all our fine electronics at home? Well, I think I found the perfect solution. Elmo, come here. Come here, boy. Sit. Hey. That's a good boy. You're fine. Sit. More. Couch lamp. On. It's a good boy. Come here. Sit. You're fine. Elmo. Couch light 2. On. Good boy. Elmo. Couch light 1. Off. Couch light 1. Off.
Maybe it's time to try something smarter?
Say hello to smarter lighting. Hammer Smart Lights bring voice control, energy efficiency, and 16 million vibrant colors right to your fingertips.
Oh my, what a terrific alternative.
More smart, more home. Hammer. The rise of modern technology takes its toll on all of us. Hours and hours at your desk leads to stiff necks, aching shoulders, sore lower backs. But there is a solution. Back Force. The Back Force 1 Plus doesn't just stand like a rock on the digital battlefield, it transforms the way you sit. With Gamer Pulse LED lighting lasting up to 20 hours, this chair is more than just a seat. It's a throne. Personalize it with patches for your nickname, clan tag, or any custom text. Because your chair should be as unique as you are. Every Backforce chair comes in a wide variation in colors, including this noble white and gold or black and gold colorway, and the Gamerlegion Special Edition. Sit like a king. with back force.
Welcome back to the Noble Apartment Cup, where myself and Hart are sitting in these very comfortable back force chairs following a very impressive victory from you over Dogao to open the day. 3-1 in the scoreline, moving you to 2-2. Talk to me about just the recovery, will be the word I use, for yourself in the tournament in terms of mounting these set wins and putting yourself in a position where you very much control your own destiny going into tomorrow and looking to finish in a 3-2 fashion.
Yeah, I finally feel like at least I'm at a decent score, you know. Tomorrow's do or die, I think. Well, actually, I think depending on my book holes, I might, even if I lose, I might have a chance. I don't know how it works really, but yeah, either way, I'm happy that I recovered from being down 0-2. So yeah, it feels nice to start the day with a win, and you know, like, just optimistic from here, right? Like 2 wins in a row, it makes you more confident for sure.
Now, talk to me about the setup towards this series. How do you feel you and Dogao stylistically match up against each other?
I would say he's more like a strategic player in hybrid maps. I would say that's where he excels at the most. Meanwhile, I'm a bit more land aggressive kind of player, I think. So like I didn't really necessarily pick towards my strengths. I just picked some like what I thought was good overall. But I think I did pull ahead in the land-oriented maps.
Yeah, speaking of, right, of course, we go to game number 1. One of the longest games, if not the longest game of the tournament so far on Dry River. And nearly became a wood game as we continue to check in on the resources. Magyars versus Saracens. How do you evaluate this matchup? Because it seems there are advantages for either Civ at different times. But were you confident in a late game setup against a very versatile Civ like Saracens?
Like I just messed up the early game so hard. Like I started the game with a nice lead. I killed 2 or 3 vills, but I think the first 2 games I was very sloppy when it comes to attention to detail. I was losing units left and right, like just some basically unnecessary mistakes, non-force mistakes, just not the best play. And then he picked off villagers from me, so he made it even. And after that, he moved out with archers, which I really wasn't expecting. Like I thought he was gonna go CA or something like that. So he kind of caught me off guard because I saw the archery range very early. I just didn't think he was making archers. I thought it was gonna be for CA. So that caught me off guard. I lost more villagers there. I got taken off the shorefish, which was my like supposed to be advantage, right? Because he's falling back to his base. But yeah, eventually I recovered.
Talk to me about the way your approach to the game develops and shifts as the game reaches like a post-Imperial situation, right? Because obviously the focus comes, I would imagine, more towards military control and overall unit composition. But when you're in a situation where neither player necessarily feels like they can make progress and you're both just taking trades, losing 50 units apiece, you know, what did you see as the win condition? Was it just outlast him, or did you feel like at some point you actually had to deliver a killing blow?
Well, first of all, I didn't know the map had like 8 relics, I think. So I thought I had 2, and I thought he had 3, but he had 6. And I was wondering where the hell are these camels coming from? No way the Saracen market's that OP, you know. So my approach to the fight was basically just try to lose as few CA as possible while killing as many camels from him. And then eventually, I was hoping that he would run out of gold. I'm not sure if it was even the case with that many relics and the Saracen market, but I think eventually the Magyar Hussar really carried a lot of weight there and allowed me to get some snowball fights.
I gotta be honest, I wish we had a way to get a statistic for all, like the total number of kills that all of your cav archers had. We did check near the end of the game, and like the 22 cav archers you had live had like over 200 kills. It was absolutely incredible.
Yeah, I was naming all of them, like Pepito, Juan, like they all had a name.
It must have hurt then to lose one.
Yes, yeah. I was healing them inside my castles with herbal medicine because like I cared that much about them. I couldn't really afford to make more.
There you go. Don't sleep on that upgrade then. Herbal medicine in your late game games. But from there we go to game number 2. We're on Tier Garden. I think this one, obviously, it became all about the central control with both of you opting for castles in the middle. I think this was one of the few timings where it felt like Dogao had better timing than you in getting to the Imperial Age and making use of the trebs.
Yeah, so what happened there is he went for a raid and I was open at home, and it just like it completely destabilized my economy. I had a lot of idols, and I pretty much at that point I knew he would be faster to imp than me. But I still had to try to go for it because that was my only shot. I was hoping that maybe the Jordan repairing would help a little bit, but I just didn't have enough time. And I think if we reset armies or reset castles, like he lost both castles and so did I, then maybe I could do something with hand cannoneer. But that wasn't the case. He was just in a much better position after that. And yeah, that was a bit of a disaster game. Like I feel like Georgians should just kind of stomp Slavs on a map like that. That was my first pick, so it was a bit demoralizing to lose that one because I really needed to win with my first pick, right?
Right. Either way, you would ultimately take the next 2 games, and we jump to that third game in Arabia, Vietnamese, Hindustanis. This one, I think, obviously, this is how we think of you, a classically an Arabia player. And in almost all cases, it just felt like you were in total control here, having the initiative and ultimately having the better timing, better castle placements, and better trades.
Yeah, Arabia's like my home map. Always, I think. I don't actually home map it except for this time, but yeah, I feel very comfortable on it, and maybe I should home map it more often because I do feel quite comfortable on it. Yeah, the game just went as planned. Everything went my way. I think I just pulled ahead in economy, got some aggression at the right times in the game, and then I think I have a save that controls the tempo of the game better if they get initiative early on.
It also just felt like, too, right, being able to so easily go into skirmishers, counter unit to everything he's making, whether it be archers or those cav archers, and unfortunately not able to use the mobility of the cav archers to punish you in any way. We did see initially there was a thought to put a more aggressive castle forward. You opt for the first one. When you know that you're in control of a game, how does the decision tree for you change? Is it more about finding the winning moment or avoiding all of the possible losing moments, the throws?
I placed the castle there initially, and then when I realized, like, no, you're being an absolute animal. Go back, put it in a safe spot, and just like think a little bit, don't throw an already won game being an animal. So I stepped back a little bit and played it safe. I knew I should be ahead to imp. Okay,
so Vikings, obviously, it felt like an obvious choice for us here, for you, and naturally you go for it. It felt like he had the option of either the Dravidians or the Italian. First question, did you expect Dravidians, or were you thinking as well it could have been either?
I expected Dravidians. That was his first pick, and he also home at Pacific Islands. So, and Dravidians are like one of the best, if not probably one of the best cities on that map. So yeah, I was expecting that.
Obviously, in this map, the players have choice of either island to go for, right? You were the one who landed first. You chose the right side island. Dogao chooses to match you. Obviously, when you scout that out, that has to affect your decision-making moving into the Feudal and the Castle Age. But of all things, I think one of the pleasant surprises for us was kind of how both players, recognizing that, opted to completely ignore water. And instead focus on land, and if anything, go for Viking scouts, which I think some people would see a little bit as a surprise, and even investing into that armor, where long-term, maybe, cavalry is never going to be an option for you.
Yeah, so like on land, Dravidians just have the better skirmishers, right? And better siege, so I kind of don't want to get into a unit composition for both of us that favors him. So I was trying to make the game a bit tricky. Like baiting him into trying to attack me and then coming out with scouts, hopefully getting a clear up or at least gain time so I hit Castle Age. And that's where Vikings really shine, right? Like in Castle Age, they just have their bonuses come together, they get the longbows and stuff. And yeah, I played towards it, and I got a nice counterattack on his woodline, killed a lot of villagers, and from there it was just kind of over.
Now, so viewers won't know this, but you and I had the pleasure of being at least halfway home travel buddies last NAC. We made the first leg of our flight together before parting ways and going to our respective countries. But in that time, it was actually such a treat for me to get to talk to you about where you felt like you were in your Age of Empires journey and in your career at the time, maybe your dissatisfaction with your ultimate placement at the last NAC, but reframing and focusing on your goals going forward. So nearly a year later, hit me. How do you feel now? Where are you at?
I mean, that will be decided tomorrow.
Okay.
I think I need a good result tomorrow for me to feel good about my placement in this tournament. Last NAC, I was happy just to be there. But now, like almost a year later, like I feel like I'm more demanding of myself, and I have higher expectations. So yeah, I will be happy if things go my way tomorrow. Otherwise, it hasn't been too bad either. But yeah, tomorrow defines whether it's at least a successful start to the event for me.
I think the important thing is that by putting yourself in a 2-2 position, right, you're in control of your destiny. In that, if you win tomorrow, you go to 3-2, and there's almost no scenario where a 3-2 player gets pushed outside of the top 6. I guess my final question for you would be, on that journey, where do you feel you've made the most progress in your game? What has been the element of your game that's leveled up the most in the course of that 10, 11 months?
I think experience mainly. Like I've been around the scene for a long time, but I haven't really played many tournaments. I think I'm one of the people who have played the least amount of tournaments, even comparing to like newer pros. I've been around, but I didn't play tournaments. So like I've been just acquiring experience tournament by tournament. And yeah, I think every time I play a set or in a tournament, I just make progress because I learn something new. I add more things to my memory, basically, things to look back on, what works, what doesn't, how to come back from positions, and so on, so on. And also, when it's a LAN event, this is my 3rd LAN event this year. I've been lucky about that. And like I don't feel like nervous going into a set or anything. So I guess that's also, I've matured when it comes to the mentals too.
Sweet.
So that helps.
Well, that's awesome to hear. I'm very happy to see you performing as well as you are in this tournament so far. I'm going to congratulate you again on this victory. I wish you the best of luck tomorrow. You're done set 1 of the day. Now you get some time to rest, recover, or maybe practice and work up some crazy strategies for tomorrow. Either way, I'll see you around, and I'll see the rest of you around in just a bit as we head to a quick break. But when we come back, we're diving into set 2 of our day 4 of the Noble Apartment Cup group stage. See you soon.